Chapter 43:15. Ao Qian stood there with a majestic aura. The silver-white dragon Qi spread rapidly in the sea. The dragon race in the east prostrated themselves before the dragon Qi, and the several 100,000 sea tribe members prostrated themselves in worship. Ao Qian turned a deaf ear to Xiao Hua's question, and a cold expression appeared in his eyes as he looked down at Xiao Hua. Shameless thief! On the west side of Ao Qian, a fiery voice boomed like thunder. It was the West Sea Lord Ao Hong who had appeared after Xiao Hua had released the Grand Mist Ancestor from the Sea Eye. He was also clad in scarlet battle armor as he stood above the Sea Tribe. Ao Hong looked at Xiao Hua and scolded, "When this king heard that you risked your life to kill Long Sea on the Dragon Island and saved my Four Seas dragon race, I praised you and thought you were a chivalrous person. Although you were conferred the title of Dragon Master, many of the West Seas dragon race were dissatisfied and wanted to find trouble with you. This king persuaded them and said good words for you. But I didn't expect you to be such a heartless person, coveting the Four Seas Dragon Palace so much. Everything that happened before was just a show between you and Ao Sheng, right? You're really sorry for the trust this king had in you that day." Ao Qian's figure appeared, and his scarlet dragon horns dyed the sea red. The dragon Qi that was as brilliant as the sunset was especially beautiful, and it enveloped the west side. However, this scarlet dragon Qi was the same as the silver-white dragon Qi. When it was about 1,000 zhang in front of Xiao Hua, it stopped and surrounded Xiao Hua. Whether it was the scarlet dragon Qi or the silver-white dragon Qi, there were countless dragon runes inside. Each dragon rune was like a small flood dragon, full of power. Xiao Hua smiled and turned to look at Ao Hong. He asked, "Ao Hong, this Xiao risked his life to save the Four Seas Dragon Palace's dragon race in the stacked jadeite relic realm, and it's just a few words of trust in your mouth? If you're willing to abandon this trust because of a few words of suspicion, I think, this kind of trust, this Xiao doesn't care, this kind of trust is not worth anything. Damn it." The West Seas Dragon King, Ao Hong, who had been at the top for a long time, roared, and scarlet flames rushed out from his body, burning the sea within 100 li. "Second brother, don't worry." In the north opposite Ao Tsongda, an emerald green dragon Qi gushed out, and a cold voice came from the dragon Qi. Then, he looked at the area where the dragon aura had spread for hundreds of kilometers. First, there were tiny popping sounds. Then, strange seeds the size of a thumb began to sprout. Every sprout was in the shape of a dragon. It seemed that every sprout was the source of the sound. When Xiao Hua's gaze swept across the center of these green sprouts, a simple and unadorned dragon crown was revealed. A pair of emerald green dragon horns exuded the majesty of the dragon race. The green sprouts gathered towards the dragon horns. In the blink of an eye, the North Sea Dragon King Ao Go's figure, clad in an emerald green dragon robe, emerged from the green sprouts. Ao Go roared. "The North Sea Dragon Palace is absolutely irreconcilable with Xiao Hua. If you want to fight, let me do it first. If I don't grind his bones to dust, I won't be able to quench the hatred in my heart. Another ungrateful bastard." Xiao Hua looked at Ao Go. Though he'd never seen the North Sea Dragon King before, when he thought of what he'd encountered in Feather Spirit Bay, Yuanya's encounter in the arena, and what he'd seen on the dragon boat, he couldn't help but feel a wave of disgust. A cold light flashed through his eyes as he unceremoniously rebuked, "I saved a descendant of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas in the stacked emerald relic realm of Dragon Island. Even Dragon Island was grateful, so why should the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas be grateful to me? Ao Zheng and the other dragon generals of the North Sea Dragon Palace weren't killed by me. What kind of irreconcilable hatred do I have for the North Sea Dragon Palace? Didn't I ruin Ao Jing's wishful thinking and take away Jiang Hong of the Heavenly Abode River? The dragons of the Three Rivers and Four Seas were born from the same root. You all killed your own bloodline and committed despicable acts. How can you still have the face to slander me?" Speaking up to here, Xiao Hua looked at the South Sea Dragon King Ao Shuaguang again. He raised his hand and pointed at Ao Qian, who was paralyzed on the ground. He said, "Don't blame Ao Qian for killing his 3 brothers. The dragons of your dragon palace have always been so cruel and against the laws of nature. You all have no right to blame Ao Qian. I want you to quickly wash your ass clean and give him the throne of the South Sea Dragon Palace. He's already surpassed his master." Immediately after, Xiaohua chanted righteousness. His imposing manner was like a rainbow. His voice was like a heavenly sound that rippled through the sea for thousands of li. "I am the master of the dragons. You all didn't respect me and instead worshipped me. What is the reason for this? Even if you all turned to the immortal palace and got close to the Confucian cultivators, this kind of disregard for the great Tao of scripture and goes against the laws of nature, isn't that what the Confucian cultivators despise? In the past, Dragon Island didn't punish you because of your bloodline. Today, I, as the master of the dragons, represent the will of the heavens and punish you. Exterminate you. Gotcha." Following Xiaohua's voice, the 5 qi righteous thunder appeared out of thin air and enveloped the surrounding sea. Not only did it scare the dragon kings of the 4 seas to the point that they slightly shrank their heads, even the thousands of sea race were scared witless. Their previous spirit was instantly extinguished by 30%. Ha ha ha. Ao Qian laughed loudly. He raised his eyes and saw that the dragon qi of the dragon kings of the 4 seas had already trapped Xiaohua. That silvery white, scarlet red, earthy yellow, and emerald green multicolored light clearly surged together. Outside the multicolored light, the millions of sea race and dragon generals arranged themselves into a formation and shouted loudly. "Xiaohua, the so-called master of the dragons, is nothing more than a false name of Dragon Island. What qualifications do those old undying dragons of Dragon Island have to confer you the title of master of the dragons on our behalf? This master of the dragons is nothing more than a joke. Did you really take it seriously? Besides, regardless of whether you are a master of the dragons or not, today you ambushed and killed the 3 princes of the South Sea Dragon Palace. You just shifted the blame of killing the princes to Ao Qian. This kind of crime deserves to be punished. This king will consider that you have the title of master of the dragons. As long as you surrender, we will definitely not take your life. We will only capture you and bring you to Dragon Island. All the crimes will be judged by those old undying dragons of Dragon Island. We will not interfere with your life or death." "Ao Qian, you are really sick." Xiaohua sighed and shook his head. "This is the sharp-tongued sword technique of our human race's Confucian cultivators. You are from the dragon race and have just settled down in the immortal palace not long ago. You have only learned a little bit of it. I'm afraid that you don't have the ability to subdue people without fighting. You actually dare to show off in front of this Xiao? Damn it." Xiaohua's words were really cursing dragons without spitting out vulgarities. It made Ao Qian's dragon face turn red. His entire dragon body suddenly swelled up. That silvery white dragon qi mixed with dragon might surged towards Xiaohua. He shouted fiercely, "Since you want to die, then, this king will fulfill your wish. Kill." Seeing the dragon king of the East Sea make a move, the other 3 dragon kings also roared and urged their dragon qi to pounce towards Xiaohua. The 4-colored draconic qi had already sealed off the sea region within a radius of 1,000 li long ago, only leaving a space of about 1,000 zhang around Xiaohua. At this moment, the 4 dragon kings were enraged. The draconic qi surged violently like a huge wave, revealing mountains, rivers, trees, and other kinds of strange phenomena. These strange phenomena mixed with the draconic might fell, instantly squeezing the space of 1,000 zhang into a pillar. Wang. A huge rumbling sound came from this pillar of qi. Immediately after, countless draconic marks crazily swam around the edge of the pillar of qi, forming one after another powerful whirlpool. This whirlpool swept up wind blades, rushing towards Xiaohua, Wen Chu, Sky Being, and Feng Wu. Xiaohua sneered. He simply disdained to make a move. Wen Chu opened his mouth. Wu. A mouthful of sword qi spurted out. It transformed into countless small swords and flocked towards these wind blades. Boom boom boom. A series of rumbling sound came again. The sword chi collided with the wind blades and gave rise to fist-sized chi explosion. As soon as this chi explosion appeared, the dragon patterns beside the whirlpool immediately drilled into this chi explosion. Ta ta ta. Another sound like wind and rain filling the entire building. All the chi explosion instantly transformed into broken light shadows. These light shadows swayed rapidly in the midst of the violent storm and collided with each other. Every time they collided, these light shadows would stick together and form a new light shadow. In just a few breaths' time, the interior of the pillar of Qi where Xiao Hua was at was actually completely covered by these light shadows. Just at this moment, four beautiful radiances blossomed from the dragon horns of the four dragon kings of the East Sea. Wherever the radiances fell, the four-colored dragon Qi began to fuse. And when the radiances poured into the surroundings of Xiao Hua and the others, bursts of lightning were unexpectedly born from the light shadows. All the light shadows flickered and unexpectedly transformed into a surging sea. And the space around Xiao Hua was also drawn into it. Oh. Xiao Hua was a little surprised because he already had some understanding. He felt that this so-called Four Seas Great Formation might be the same as the Seven Stars Great Formation from before. It might be a space independent of the sea, and it might even be a place controlled by the domain of the four dragon kings of the East Sea. Therefore, he had long been on guard and transmitted a message to Wen Chu, Tian Ren, and Feng Wu, preparing to give a fatal blow when the Great Formation was first formed. However, when the light shadows were born, there were no fluctuations of magic power near Xiao Hua at all, nor were there any tyrannical forces that wanted to pull in. Everything was completed within the light shadows. Even when the space around Xiao Hua was drawn into the sea, there were no abnormalities. It was as if the sun was easily shining. Xiao Hua and the others were almost involuntarily trapped within the Four Seas Great Formation. However, when Xiao Hua saw this kind of light shadows change, he only urged his divine ability to protect his body. Although the four dragon kings of the East Sea were powerful, they were only at the 9th grade of essence energy. Xiao Hua didn't believe that they could be more powerful than a 9th grade Dao transformation cultivator of the ruins, and more difficult to deal with than a devil emperor of the devil race. When the Four Seas Great Formation was first formed, Xiao Hua looked around. Sure enough, it was a huge space above the sea. But he saw that at the top of the space was a four-colored sky. When his divine sense swept past, he couldn't see the end. Among the four colors of the sky, there were countless dragon shadows and dragon roars appearing. Looking at the surface of the sea, the surging waves were filled with the shadows of the four dragon kings of the East Sea. There were so many overlapping shadows that it was impossible to distinguish which one was the real dragon king. Under the surface of the sea, his divine sense couldn't penetrate, and he couldn't see what exactly was there. Chapter 43:16. Humph. Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes. Although he let out a cold snort, he was alarmed. After all, the dragon kings of the four seas were the supreme dragon clan in the 3 continents. They had been famous for a long time, and Xiao Hua could not compare with them in terms of cultivation age. Before Xiao Hua entered the heavenly prison, he was a severed divinity cultivator. In terms of combat strength, he was almost at the 6th tier of Yuan Qi. However, after entering the middle of 8th level of essence energy, the gap between the upper, middle, and lower levels would become extremely large. Every level would require tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years of cultivation to fill in the gap. Right now, Xiao Hua's realm was at the lower of 9th level of essence energy. His combat strength was only between middle and upper of 9th level of essence energy. He had not truly reached the supreme upper of 9th level of essence energy. Therefore, when facing the dragon kings of the four seas, Xiao Hua appeared to have a card up his sleeve, but in his heart, he still did not dare to underestimate them in the slightest. Ha! Ao Tsongxiu's wild laughter echoed throughout the entire space. You are indeed a dragon who used the dragon cleansing liquid in the folded emerald legacy land. You are so arrogant. You didn't even blink when you saw me and my brothers constructing the Four Seas formation. Do you not put the formation of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas in your eyes? Did the elders of the Dragon Island give you some divine ability that is beyond our Dragon Palace? Even if he is a dragon who used the dragon cleansing liquid, he has only condensed his body for 200 years. How powerful can he be? I don't believe he is my match. Ao Go, the Dragon King of the North Sea, shouted. Ha, ha. Xiao Hua laughed so hard that he almost rocked back and forth. A moment later, he straightened his back, pointed his finger at the ocean surface and said, "So, all of you are just putting on a show with me? You are actually trying to kill two birds with one stone, and your real target is Reverend Yun." Reverend Yun? Yes, the 11th clan of the Dragon Island that has been missing for a long time. Ao Qian, who had been silent all this time, said faintly. That's a good name. Reverend Yun, are you still not going to show yourself? Xiao Hua looked at the surface of the Four Seas Great Array with interest. The surface of the sea was still Lihan Heaven in the forgotten realm of stacked emerald. However, it was clear that there was no water in Lihan Heaven. The interior of the Four Seas Great Array was completely condensed from the sea crystals of the sea. The waves on the surface of the sea rippled. Every drop of water contained terrifying power. Reverend Yun. Seeing that Xiao Hua didn't say anything, Feng Wu, Tian Ren, and Wen Chu also didn't say anything, Ao Qian laughed and said, "It doesn't matter if you admit it or not. Since you have transformed into Xiao Hua's appearance, everything that you have done in the South Sea Dragon Palace will soon reach the Dragon Palace, and my Dragon Palace of the Four Seas will definitely escort you to the Dragon Island. Of course, all of these crimes are Xiao Hua's and have nothing to do with you. If you are interested, why don't the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas make a deal with you?" Damn it. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly, touched his nose helplessly and asked, "Ao Qian, why are you so sure that I'm Reverend Yun? Why am I not Xiao Hua? Could it be another human cultivator? What's so strange about that? Others may not know, but how could the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas not know?" Before Ao Qian could answer, Ao Go, the Dragon King of North Sea, spoke first. The two biggest secrets of the trial on the Dragon Island are the appearance of Dragon Sea and the body forming of Reverend Yun. All the dragons in the Three Rivers and Four Seas were eagerly waiting for the appearance of Reverend Yun. But, after the trial, apart from Xiao Hua's whereabouts, he had appeared everywhere on the hidden immortal continent, and even reached the sacred realm of Thousand Demons. But, Reverend Yun had never shown himself before anyone. So, what is Reverend Yun doing now? Of course, he is in a secluded meditation to form his body. It has been 200 years since then. I suppose Reverend Yun has succeeded in forming his body, and is now thinking of taking action after staying still for so long? What you said is true. I really didn't think so much about it. Xiao Hua nodded. He had understood that the Xiao Hua mentioned by the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas was none other than the little white dragon who had transformed into his appearance. Of course, the little white dragon had made it clear that his soul was similar to his own. Even the revered Vairocana could not tell them apart, so how could these dragons do it? Besides, Ao Jia did not mention anything about the little white dragon's body forming, so none of the elders of the Dragon Island knew about it. What was more, the little white dragon was hiding in the shadow of Reverend Yun. Even if Ao Xing knew about it, he would never have guessed it. As he had not shown himself in the heavenly prison for over 200 years, the little white dragon must have shown himself and been recognized as him by others. As a result, when he suddenly appeared in the Dragon Palace of South Sea, Ao Qian and the other Dragon Kings immediately understood that he was Reverend Yun, who had been missing for a long time. Therefore, sometimes, there was no story without coincidences, and it did make sense. Immediately after, the Dragon King's voice once again reverberated within the Great Formation. What's more, Xiao Hua is merely a Taoist cultivator. 200 years ago, it was true that he was already outstanding amongst the 4th or 5th grade of origin energy, but, do you think that the real Xiao Hua would have your current strength? Ao Tsong smiled and said, First, you went through the 9th tier trial in the Dragon Palace of South Sea, then you destroyed the 7 Stars formation, and finally, you destroyed the dragon image formation formed by 4 old sinecures. Reverend Yun now has the overall strength of a 9th tier cultivator. Apart from the dragon cleansing liquid of our dragon island, is there any other miracle in the 3 continents? Xiao Hua smiled wryly. Looking at these self-righteous dragon kings, he asked curiously, since you already know that I am Reverend Yun, and are ready to use me as Xiao Hua, why do you still take out the dragon seal of the immortal palace? I get it now. Suddenly, Xiao Hua was enlightened. He looked at the surface of the ocean smilingly and said, is this the deal mentioned by the Dragon King of East Sea? Ha ha ha, that's right. When Ao Qian saw that Xiao Hua was enlightened, he laughed and said, since Reverend Yun has understood it, we don't have to hide it from you anymore. Using you as Xiao Hua is an open matter, but we still want to make a private deal with you. Not only did the 9 elders of the Dragon Island do nothing, and never cared about the grudges between the 3 rivers and the 4 seas, they also meddled in the affairs of the Dragon Palace of 4 seas. How can such a dragon palace still be the supreme dragon palace in the hearts of the dragons? If Reverend Yun has the intention, we, the Dragon Palace of 4 seas. At this point, Ao Qian gave Feng Wu and the others a look and did not continue. However, he had made his meaning very clear. Xiao Hua found it rather funny that Ao Qian was showing off the idioms of the human race, such as do nothing. But, he did not show it on his face. Instead, he looked at Feng Wu and the others and said, Ao Qian, do you mean that if I have the intention to be an elder of the Dragon Palace, you, the Dragon Palace of 4 seas and the Immortal Palace can help me? An elder of the Dragon Palace. Reverend Yun, do you care? If I'm not mistaken, Ao Jia must have promised you the position of the 10th elder of the Dragon Palace that day. You didn't agree to it at that time, so do you care about the position of an ordinary elder now? Ao Qian did not answer Xiao Hua's question, but asked him a question instead. Xiao Hua smiled and said, so, Dragon King of East Sea means you can help me become the Great Elder? I didn't say that. This is just your guess. Ao Qian was not fooled. He answered indifferently, of course, if you have such an intention, I can certainly consider. At this point, Xiao Hua had come to the point where the dagger was revealed. After pondering for a while, he looked at the surface of the ocean where no Dragon King had shown up, then said, I think the name Reverend Yun is quite good, and I don't want to change it to Ao Jia for the time being. Damn it. Ao Hong's voice rang out. Didn't I tell you? A dragon who has condensed his body with dragon cleansing liquid is definitely arrogant. If we don't beat him to a pulp, he will never know his own shallowness. Don't worry, second brother. Reverend Yun and I are all dragons. It's best if we don't start a war, so we don't have to embarrass ourselves. But, if we do, who knows what accidents will happen. Elder brother, there's no need to talk so much with him. Ao Go was somewhat impatient as well. Reverend Yun has been hiding for 200 years without being discovered by the Dragon Palace. He must have been hidden by the Dragon Island. I'm afraid he is of the same mind as Ao Jia of the Dragon Palace. Let's suppress this and use his dragon body. All right. Ao Qian seemed to be in a difficult position as well. He said to Xiao Hua, Reverend Yun, you've heard it. I've tried my best to be on good terms with you, so I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. But, you just don't agree, which puts me in a difficult position. I think you also know that your body, which is condensed with dragon cleansing liquid, is a supreme treasure to the dragons. Now, you've delivered it to the Dragon Palace of the 4 seas. If you still don't agree, don't blame the Dragon Palace of the 4 seas for killing you. There's no need for that. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, I'll never agree. Just do it. Suppress him. Without hesitation, Ao Qian gave a furious roar. A loud dragon roar rang out as a dragon body, over 100,000 feet long, rushed out of the ocean, and all the dragon forms of the Dragon King of East Sea were gathered in it. As Ao Qian's dragon body was revealed, the whole space began to tremble, and a suffocating sealing force rolled towards Xiaohua and the others. Let me see what the Dragon King of East Sea is capable of. Xiaohua smiled coldly. A rumbling sound came from his body as he exercised the reflection of heaven and earth cultivation technique. A strange light burst out of his body and cracked the spatial force of the Four Seas formation. Humph. As Ao Qian's dragon body took shape, the eastern position of the Four Seas formation was filled with silver-white dragon power. The dragon power transformed into sharp spears, which moved up and down with Ao Qian's movements. Roar. Almost at the same time, Ao Hong, Ao Concrete, and Ao Go revealed themselves in the west, south, and north respectively. The power of their domains grew several times stronger, suppressing Feng Wu and the others. The Four Seas formation is indeed interesting. After receiving Xiaohua's order, the Celestial snorted, took out the bone dragon demonic spear, and pointed it at Ao Go. But, it's really wishful thinking for you to suppress me with your strength. Little dragon, let me teach you a lesson. Chapter 43:17. As he spoke, the Celestial being stepped on a cloud of light. The devil chi on the bone spear overflowed as he pounced on Ao Go. Ao Go was stunned at first, then he burst into laughter. He opened his mouth, and seemingly endless emerald dragon chi gushed out. He said, "You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. How dare you use the devil race's cultivation method in my dragon palace? Don't tell me you don't know. The dragon chi of my dragon race is brighter than the righteous chi of Confucian cultivators. And the devil chi's nemesis?" Wen Chu didn't know why Xiaohua wanted him to deal with the Dragon King of the South Sea, Ao Go, but in his eyes, the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas were the same. Seeing the Celestial being moved, he also raised his hand and waved. A sword light soared into the sky. His figure stepped on a seven-colored cloud and flew toward Ao Go. Wen Chu shouted, "I, Wen Chu, am here to fight under orders." Wen Chu. Seeing Wen Chu's extremely pure genuine chi of Confucian cultivators and the sword light of martial cultivators, Ao Go was a little puzzled. However, he only pondered for a moment. A dragon claw stretched out toward Wen Chu, and a light shadow of dozens of miles in size appeared. The light shadow crossed the sky and formed a substantial yellow dragon claw, sealing the space around Wen Chu. Ao Go's dragon tail swayed under the sea and quietly smashed toward Wen Chu's back. Seeing that Xiaohua and the others had opponents, Feng Wu looked at Ao Hong, the Dragon King of the West Sea, whose body was surging with flames. He couldn't help but laugh. He finally understood Xiaohua's plan. Feng Wu spread his wings, and the power of the seven stars and the moon surged around him. An indescribable primitive aura was activated. Feng Wu raised his head and let out a long cry. "Little Loach, let Grandpa teach you a lesson. I'll let you know that it's not easy to be the Dragon King of the West Sea." Feng Wu's words made Ao Hong so angry that his nose was crooked. He really wanted to swallow Feng Wu in one gulp, but when he saw the power of the stars and moon coiling around Feng Wu's body, the wind and lightning between its wings, and the numerous illusory images that appeared as its claws descended, his heart couldn't help but be shocked, and a bad feeling arose from the bottom of his heart. He didn't dare to be negligent in the slightest. He also raised his head and let out a dragon's roar. The space shook, and the west was immediately dyed in flames. Even the surface of the sea had turned into a sea of fire. Pillars of fire shot up into the sky and attacked Feng Wu's body. Buzz! The phoenix parasol flapped its wings. The power of the stars and moon transformed into seven illusory figures that descended like thunder. Cracks immediately appeared in the space that the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas had sealed. Not only did the illusory figure destroy the seal, but it also extinguished the fire pillars. When the thousands of fire pillars turned into fireflies, the illusory figure's momentum did not decrease as it slammed into the surface of the sea. Boom! There was no wind or waves on the surface of the sea. Instead, Thin cracks appeared and rapidly spread in all directions. Damn it! Ao Qian was enraged. With a furious roar, a crimson pillar of fire shot out from his dragon mouth. Crimson threads that looked like hair grew from his dragon horns and entered the pillar of fire. Wherever the pillar of fire went, the sealed space melted. Drops of dark green liquid dripped down, and within the liquid, there seemed to be the sorrowful cries of 10,000 dragons. Feng Wu was not afraid at all. She opened her mouth as well. Woo woo. A waterfall of innate heavy water rushed towards the crimson fire pillar. Feng Wu's phoenix claws still crossed the space and grabbed at Ao Hong's chest. Boom, boom, boom. Water and fire had always been mortal enemies. Although Ao Hong and Feng Wu were the last to attack, they did the least probing. The explosion of water and fire was especially violent. Ao Hong's fire pillar seemed to be no match for the innate true water, but the innate true fire crystals bursting out from his dragon horns were a few times stronger than the innate heavy water. The tremendous explosion generated an unimaginable force that tore apart the space within a few thousand miles. Countless dragon carvings rushed in from the countless cracks in the void. While the dragon carvings repaired the cracks in the void, they also fell into the ocean beneath the void. Amidst the sound of water and fire, Feng Wu's phoenix claws fell again and collided with Ao Hong's dragon claws. ZZZT. First, there was a loud boom. Ao Hong's dragon claw actually dimmed. Feng Wu's phoenix claw suddenly solidified and broke Ao Hong's dragon claw in an instant. How is this possible? Ao Hong turned pale with fright. A trace of panic flashed through his dragon eyes as he looked at Feng Wu in disbelief. He really didn't understand when there was another demon in the Thousand Demons sacred realm who could injure him. However, Ao Hong's panic only lasted for a moment. Pung! Ao Hong's dragon tail had already reached out from the void and landed solidly on Feng Wu's back. Ao Hong's panic turned into mockery. The brilliance on his dragon claws shone brightly again. Ao Qian shouted, "You are indeed very strong. However, you still fell into this king's trap. Within this four seas grand formation, this king is omnipotent." Ga. Feng Wu seemed to be in pain. His body was tumbling in midair, and he had no time to care about Ao Hong's mockery. Ha ha ha, go to hell. Ao Hong laughed maniacally. The dragon crown on his dragon head flashed, and a light shadow appeared. The dragon horn emitted a strange fluctuation, and the light shadow transformed into a real dragon head that pounced on Feng Wu's tumbling body. However, before the dragon head could land on Feng Wu's body, Feng Wu, who was in a sorry state, suddenly waved her left wing. Several beams of starlight shot out and shattered the dragon head. At the same time, her right wing stretched out again with lightning speed and actually transformed into a huge fist that smashed onto Ao Hong's dragon head. Ao Hong was stunned. This time, he really shook his head in disbelief and looked at Feng Wu's back. He really could not believe that Feng Wu was unharmed after being hit by his dragon tail. However, to his disappointment, 7 layers of starlight and moon power appeared on Feng Wu's back. It turned into a net under the feathers and protected Feng Wu firmly. How can there be so much starlight and moon power in the Four Seas formation? Ao Hong was puzzled. He opened his mouth again and was about to activate the obscure dragon language when he suddenly became alert. His dragon tail hurriedly swayed and his dragon body hurriedly dodged. Rip! Feng Wu's claws strangely appeared on Ao Hong's abdomen. It scratched the dragon scales on his abdomen and revealed a wound that was dozens of feet long. Ah! Ao Hong screamed and was shocked. Ao Qian, Ao Concrete, and Ao Go all looked at Ao Hong in surprise. They also did not expect that Ao Hong would be injured in just a short time. What shocked them even more was that Ao Hong screamed and raised his dragon claws. Swoosh! He grabbed Feng Wu's claws. Boom! A huge roar sounded again. Ao Hong moved his dragon body and pounced on Feng Wu. His dragon head opened his mouth and bit at Feng Wu's neck. Without waiting for Ao Hong to fall, Feng Wu's right wing swung again. Wu! Feng Wu's dragon head was smashed into nothingness. This dragon head was actually Ao Hong's feint. Feng Wu then looked at Feng Wu. Ga. With a long cry, the power of the stars and moon spewed out from her beak and landed on a nearby space. Boom! The void was torn apart by the power of the stars and moon. Ao Qian's dragon head was exposed awkwardly and the power of the stars and moon accurately hit Ao Hong's dragon horn. Ao! Ao Hong let out a sorrowful cry as his vision blurred. At this moment, Feng Wu's beak suddenly pecked at Ao Hong's forehead, and a faint strand of dragon essence was actually swallowed by Feng Wu. Damn it! Ao Hong roared in pain and twisted his dragon body. A great force came from the space and Feng Wu's claws loosened. Ao Hong took advantage of this and disappeared strangely from Feng Wu's sight. Ao Go saw the celestial rushing over with the bone dragon demonic spear and could not help laughing. The righteous chi of a Confucian cultivator was the nemesis of demonic chi. Although dragon chi was not the destiny of a Confucian cultivator, the destiny of the human race was that of a dragon. Therefore, dragon chi was also the nemesis of demonic chi. Ao Go felt that he had gained a great advantage. He opened his mouth and countless pure emerald dragon chi roared and pounced on the celestial. Sure enough, the demonic chi rushing out of the bone dragon demonic spear was destroyed by these small dragons. The demonic light of the spear was somewhat dim. Ha ha ha. Ao Go laughed again. The emerald green on his dragon body shone brightly, covering nearly 1,000 miles. Almost countless dragon patterns rushed out from the space. Above the sea, huge vines flashed with multicolored light and wrapped around the celestial. Seeing Ao Go's attack, the celestial was helpless. He was different from Xiao Hua's other doppelgangers. The celestial was formed from Xiao Hua's bones and was the doppelganger that cultivated the light escape. This doppelganger had no special ability except for tempering his origin energy and cultivating various bone tempering techniques. Moreover, because the celestial was born with the body of a primitive celestial, not to mention the 3 continents and Dawn Rain continent, even the ruins and primitive continent did not have a suitable ability for him to cultivate. Therefore, usually, the celestial would go into battle bare-chested except for brandishing his spear and staff. Now that the wishful staff was too light, it was not suitable for the celestial to use. The celestial had no choice but to fall into an awkward situation. Previously, in the 7-star Great Array, he did not play a special role. However, the celestial had another ability that others did not have, and that was the celestial bone. Now, no one could control the celestial bone except the celestial. If Xiao Hua used the bone now, not to mention 1 Ao Go, even 2 Ao Go would be defeated by the celestial. However, the celestial bone was not the celestial's own bone. When the celestial activated the bone, he would inevitably be affected by the terrifying consciousness. For safety reasons, Xiao Hua could only let the celestial temporarily use the bone dragon demonic spear to fight the enemy. However, this demonic spear was difficult for the celestial. After all, the celestial did not cultivate any demonic arts and could not activate the demonic flames of the demonic spear. He could only use the demonic spear as an ordinary demonic tool. Ao Go's dragon chi fell. Seeing that many of the demons on the demonic spear were killed by the dragon chi, the celestial could not do anything. Chapter 43:18. Roar. The celestial let out a roar and his arms shook. The bone spear let out a thunderous roar and the bone dragon floated up from the spear. Although there were no fluctuations or dragon tattoos on the dragon's horn, the natural dragons might still spread out. Especially the sharpness of the dragon's horns, they instantly pierced through the emerald green dragon chi. An indescribable feeling of fear stabbed into Ao Go's dragon body like an invisible flying sword. Damn it! Feeling this fear and the destructive dragon's might from the bone spear, Ao Go cursed angrily. He didn't dare to face the bone spear head-on. His dragon body flickered, and he immediately moved hundreds of miles away, dodging the bone spear. The Celestial didn't chase after him. The bone spear danced in his hand. Shwa shwa shwa. The bone spear danced in the air. Numerous black dragon heads appeared in the air. These dragon heads were formed from tiny demon heads. The dragon heads howled as they pounced on the dragon patterns and dragon chi in the air. They even rushed out of the sea's surface. Boom. It was very strange. When the dragon chi and dragon veins came in contact with the devil chi of the bone spear, they immediately turned gray and were swallowed by the devil head of the bone spear. As for the rattan, it easily collapsed under the attack of the bone spear and was destroyed by it. Ha ha ha. At this time, the Celestial finally understood Xiao Hua's arrangement. The embarrassment in his heart disappeared, and he also laughed. The bone spear in his hand was like a shadow as it casually stabbed at the space sealed by Ao Go. Damn it. Ao Go didn't know how many times he cursed in his heart. He could see the Celestial's weakness, but the bone spear in the Celestial's hand was not only sharp, but it was also refined from a dragon corpse that was much higher in grade than him. Although the Celestial didn't know how to control the dragon corpse, the innate dragon's might was enough to completely suppress Ao Go. Ao Go raised his hand, and a golden light flashed through the sky. Within the golden light, the same spear shadow shot through the sky like lightning towards the Celestial. Seeing Ao Go take out his golden spear, the Deva let out an excited roar in midair. He no longer cared about the draconic aura, and instead, began to fight Ao Go. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Ao Go suddenly raised his hand and lifted the long spear into the air. The dragon's mouth spat out a dragon breath, and the whole spear turned into a dragon. Not only that, but Ao Go's dragon horn also released thousands of waves. A dragon shadow appeared from the waves and fell into the long spear. Roar. The dragon image's dragon might flourished, almost suppressing the power of the bone spear. It streaked across the sky like lightning, pouncing towards the Celestial's forehead. Another spell. The Celestial was furious. He hurriedly raised his bone spear to block. However, under the power of the dragon spear, the demonic aura of the bone spear was almost completely dissipated. It seemed that the bone spear couldn't resist at all. Even the dragon horn on the bone spear dimmed. Damn it, I don't believe it. The celestial being was fighting fiercely and was unwilling to retreat. He raised his head and roared. At this time, his heart suddenly moved again because he had activated the celestial being White Bones. Although he had never cultivated the great desolate divine ability, he still had the feeling of the celestial being White Bones activating the great desolate chi. Seeing that the golden spear was about to pierce his forehead, he also shook his arms and opened his mouth to spit out a brilliance. Unfortunately, although the celestial opened his mouth, no light spurted out. However, what surprised the celestial was that the primitive chi in his arms surged into the bone spear, which was more powerful than any true chi. The bone spear immediately came to life after receiving the primitive chi. Roar. The horse dragon roar revealed the majesty of the bone dragon when it was alive, and with the dragon's roar, the demonic aura on the bone spear suddenly flourished. The demonic fire and demonic flame were even more rampant than when the devil spirit Xiao Hua and Xiao Hua's body were activated before, crazily rolling towards the dragon image's ferocious golden spear. I understand now. The celestial shouted. The so-called 10,000 arts return to the origin is like this. Whether it's time, true chi, true essence, noble chi, or even devil chi, in the end, they will all return to the primitive world. I am the last day's venerable. Of course, Ao Go didn't understand what the celestial was saying, but when he saw how powerful the devil spear was, how the devil flame flickered and the devil head roared and swallowed the dragon chi and dragon might on the golden spear, he didn't dare to be careless. He braced himself and used his divine ability to fight the celestial. Putting aside the fact that the celestial being and Ao Go were evenly matched, Wen Chu was fighting against Ao Go. Ao Go's dragon claw slammed down like a mountain, creating a gust of wind that covered 1,000 miles. Wen Chu smiled faintly and threw the sword in his hand. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The sword buzzed and instantly split into 9 flying swords. Each flying sword had a different sword radiance, and each sword radiated a different sword intent. These sword intents were imbued with a mighty aura, and they shot toward the dragon claw faster than meteors. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A faint chill like the autumn rain emerged from the seal. Ao Tsongda's dragon claws were sliced off by the sword light in the autumn. The battle intent that was suppressing Wen Chu was also shattered by the ferocious power of the 9 stars transit. Which cultivation family of the hidden immortal continent do you belong to? Wen Chu. Ao Tsongshu was surprised and asked tentatively, how come this king has never heard of it? I was born from the noble spirit, and my real name is Wen Xiu. How can the human clan of the hidden immortal continent tolerate my benevolence? Wen Chu replied with a faint smile. How could Ao Concrete believe Wen Chu's words? He narrowed his eyes and said, the dragon palace of the 4 seas is now favored by the immortal emperor. You are a Confucian cultivator, so if you give up today and persuade Reverend Yun to reconcile with the dragon palace, I can recommend you to the immortal palace. With your cultivation base, you are more than qualified to be an immortal official. When the time comes, you will be welcomed by the heaven gate. How can a lackey be free and unfettered like himself? Wen Chu's tone was still indifferent. Plucking chrysanthemums under the eastern fence, leisurely looking at the southern mountain, not suffering for the mortal world, and not envying the power of the immortal emperor. While speaking, Wen Chu opened his mouth again. Woo! A mouthful of 5-colored energy sprayed out, transforming into a winter chrysanthemum and falling on the surface of the ocean. Boom! Ao Tsongshu's sneaky dragon tail suddenly lashed out from the void, hitting right on the winter chrysanthemum. Amidst a loud boom, the 5-colored energy was annihilated, and the dragon tail was forced back. How can a filthy dragon like you understand what I'm thinking? Wen Chu sighed lightly, as if he was not stained by the smoke and dust. He looked at Ao Tsongshu with a pitiful look, which was very similar to that of Buddha Bodhi. Ao Tsongshu was a bit embarrassed, but he instantly tore apart his gentleness. He simply roared, and his dragon body transformed into the image of heaven and earth. His entire voice resounded in Wen Chu's ears. It was very ferocious. I don't care if I'm Wen Saint or Wen Star, I don't care if you're an immortal official or an elder of a clan. Anyone who enters my 4 seas grand formation is an ant. Since you don't listen to my kind words, then I'll let you have a taste of my power. While speaking, Ao Tsongshu's mouth chanted a strange heavenly dragon technique. The entire horizon began to surge with a dense dragon aura. Countless primordial energies of heaven and earth gathered from an unknown place. Numerous mountains, layers of earth, and even stars appeared in the light of this primordial energy. The power of the mountains, the gravity of the earth, and the majesty and vastness of the stars all rushed towards Wen Chu amidst this strange phenomenon. Seeing such a celestial phenomenon, as if the blue dome of heaven was about to heavily press down, Wen Chu did not panic. He slightly smiled, raised his hand, and patted his head. The 5-colored energy rushed out, turning into a light that first protected him. Then, he opened his mouth and chanted, building a hut in the mortal realm, without the noise of carriages and horses. What can a gentleman do? His heart is far from his own. Picking chrysanthemums under the eastern fence, leisurely looking at the southern mountain. The mountain's aura is fine in the sun and the evening, the birds return to each other. There is true meaning in this, but I've forgotten to explain it. As Wen Chu's voice fell, large inscriptions appeared one after another. Each inscription carried a kind of arrogance, and each inscription carried a sense of loneliness. And when these inscriptions formed a sentence in the air, boom, boom, boom. A subtle noble spirit rushed out from the void. Humph. Ao Tsongshu sneered. the heavenly draconic technique didn't stop. After all, everything was sealed within the four seas array. The void was filled with dragon marks, and the mighty chi pillar couldn't break through. Just as Ao Tsongshu sneered, buzz, buzz. Wen Chu's body began to vibrate. The space within 1,000 miles began to surge like boiling water. Waves of noble spirit gushed out from Wen Chu's body. Not only did it cover 1,000 miles of space, but it also surged towards the Four Seas Grand Formation. Wen Xing. You really are a Wen Xing. Ao Tsongshu was surprised. The so-called Wen Xing he spoke of before was just flattering Wen Chu. He did not think that a Wen Xing would appear among the Confucian cultivators of the three continents. As the master of the Southern Sea Dragon Palace, he would not be unaware of it. The noble spirit continued to appear, and the arrogant words began to shine with a light. Although there weren't many words, they were like the backbone of the human race, supporting the space within thousands of miles. The majestic southern mountain and the chrysanthemums fluttering in the wind under the southern mountain blocked the so-called mountains, the earth, and the stars from appearing indifferent. What is indifference? If there is no power in this world, no disputes, how can there be any excitement? Ao Tsongshu was also proficient in the essence of Confucian cultivation. Seeing Wen Chu in such a state, he sneered and once again chanted the heavenly dragon technique with a tight rhythm. Roar, roar, roar. The stars, earth, and mountains that were blocked by the noble spirit changed again, turning into yellow dragons that fell like rain. In just a moment, the indifferent noble spirit was washed to a dangerous level. Ha! At this point, how could Wen Chu not know Xiao Hua's arrangement? Although his armor inscription was not as good as Daoist Witch's green seal inscription, his strength was recognized by Wen Chu after all, surpassing Daoist Witch. Using the Confucian armor inscription to deal with the Dragon Clan's heavenly dragon technique was complementary. Wen Chu laughed and proudly chanted, lying in a lonely village, I do not mourn for myself, I still think of guarding the wheel platform for the country. Lying in bed at night, listening to the wind and rain, I dream of iron horses and ice rivers. Chapter 43:19. As soon as Wen Chu finished speaking, even more inscriptions rushed into the air. At this moment, the space to the left of Wen Chu was filled with a grand aura. This space had already become independent of the Four Seas formation. As soon as the inscriptions came out, the sound of wind and rain came out, and the ice began to invade the Four Seas great array, blowing toward Ao Tsongshu. At the same time, under the light of the inscriptions on the armor, more noble spirit turned into armored warriors riding on horses. These warriors held long spears in their hands, and the realm of golden spears and armored horses was born instantly. Teams of armored warriors stepped on the ice river and rushed into the air. The place where the long spears fell was exactly the same as the flood dragons. The sound of horses and dragons roaring was endless. See. Ao Tsongshu saw this and unconsciously took a breath of cold air again, and Wen Chu narrowed his eyes, watching the Aoran Chi and Dragon Chi compete, and a kind of pride was born from the bottom of his heart. Xiao Hua had been refining the innate Chi in his chest since he was young, and even practiced this innate Chi to the extreme of the 18th layer. Later on, Xiao Hua's middle dantian was sealed. This true Chi had been brewing inside his middle dantian. When the seal was broken, Xiao Hua focused his true Qi on Confucian cultivation. Therefore, Xiao Hua's realm of Confucian cultivation was the highest. However, the original meaning of Confucian cultivation was not to fight, to kill, and not to show off, but to cultivate the innate vitality. After Xiao Hua comprehended this essence, he rarely used the means of Confucian cultivation to fight against the enemy. Of course, the means of Confucian cultivation were not as fierce as the means of Taoism. Wen Chu also rarely used the Aoran Qi, and mostly used the Jojo Cauldron and the innate Qi. Now, Wen Chu tried to use the insignificant inscriptions to deal with the Dragon Clan's heavenly dragon technique, and it was actually on par with the Dragon Clan, which really made Wen Chu feel gratified. Xiao Hua's 4 doppelgangers showed off their power, and fought against the 3 sea dragon kings. how could Xiao Hua be worse than them? Xiao Hua activated his golden body, and his Dharma form was born. With a wave of his arms, he cracked the restriction of the four seas formation. Ao Qian watched as Xiao Hua activated his golden body, and the silver-white spear floating in the sky seemed to be breathing. Then, he sneered and said, "You didn't take the dragon clan's path to heaven, but you didn't take the narrow door of the human clan. Today, I will teach you a lesson on behalf of my dragon ancestor, you traitor." After he finished speaking, the long spear that soared into the sky was like a mountain flood, covering the sky and the earth as it fell, covering the space where Xiao Hua was. The sharpness of that spear had already pierced through the space before it even landed. Even the brilliance of Xiao Hua's golden body had become riddled with holes. Ha! Xiao Hua smiled faintly. He knew that in this space, the divine abilities of the dragon kings of the four seas were magnified greatly, especially some of the Dharmas. Therefore, Xiao Hua wasn't in a hurry. He urged his magic power, and the power of his domain also rushed out like a mountain torrent. First, it covered nearly 1,000 miles around him, and then he grabbed with both hands. Kacha! Amidst the sound of thunder, a myriad of lightning waves rushed out even more ferociously than the spears. In just a few breaths of time, the silver spears formed from dragon chi were scattered. That violent lightning was like the anger in Xiao Hua's heart. He had been framed for no reason at all. Every strand of lightning destroyed the draconic chi, but at the same time, it also tore apart the seal of the four seas great array. Seeing the large area of draconic chi being annihilated in an instant, Ao Qian couldn't help but be shocked again. On the contrary, Xiao Hua's expression didn't change at all as he watched the draconic chi being annihilated. He understood in his heart that although the dragon kings of the four seas were stronger than the four consecrators of the southern sea dragon palace, and this four seas great array was fiercer than the seven stars great array, the seven stars great array was, after all, strengthened by generations of southern sea dragon palace masters. The power inside would definitely surpass this hastily formed four seas great array. Moreover, after these years of fighting, Xiao Hua understood even more clearly that fighting wasn't about the process, but about the outcome. No matter how fancy a magic technique was, in the end, it was still about power. Back then, Xiao Hua used the divine power in his arms to make up for his lack of magic power. Later, the growth of his divine power couldn't catch up with the growth of his magic power, so he had no choice but to pursue the power of his magic power. Now that he had already controlled the power of lightning, lightning naturally represented the punishment of heaven and earth. Even the immortal palace had to be afraid of it. Therefore, Xiao Hua simply didn't use any other magic techniques. He only used simple and crude lightning to destroy Ao Qian's draconic chi. However, when the draconic chi was completely annihilated, a bright moon rose from the sea behind Xiao Hua. The bright moonlight ignored the distance between them and appeared on Xiao Hua's back in the blink of an eye. In the moonlight, a several zhang large pearl was revealed. Inside the pearl, there seemed to be an underwater world. The deep blue sea water filled the entire pearl. Countless sea race members swam freely in this sea water. Some corals and reefs also cast shadows on them. When the moonlight fell on Xiao Hua's back, the enormous power of a minor thousand worlds suppressed Xiao Hua to the point that he almost couldn't breathe. Especially the brilliance on the pearl. In the four seas great array, it gave birth to the shape of a flood dragon and crazily tore at the brilliance on Xiao Hua's golden body. Damn it! Xiao Hua was greatly alarmed. He waved his hand and used the heaven and earth in the sleeve technique. In an instant, it enveloped the pearl and Xiao Hua's consciousness was about to take the pearl away. However, when Xiao Hua's consciousness fell, the pearl spun and released boundless vitality. Its brilliance rushed out like a bright moon and pierced Xiao Hua's mind like a sharp sword. How could Xiao Hua take this treasure? Moreover, the pearl's impact was so great that Xiao Hua's heaven and earth in the sleeve technique was actually shattered by it. Humph. Xiao Hua coldly snorted and quickly retreated. He stretched out his hand again. He didn't believe that a Mahayana cultivator couldn't take this pearl. Unfortunately, Xiaohua was still wrong. Although Xiaohua's hand had sealed the space within 100 miles, the power of the pearl to kill him had not decreased in the slightest. When it broke through the seal, it even tore the space apart. Not to mention Xiaohua trying to collect the pearl, he didn't even know if his hand would be fine after touching the pearl. What kind of treasure is this? Xiaohua was even more shocked. He waved his hand and sent out the Overturn the Sea seal. The Overturn the Sea seal's shadow crazily fell, barely stopping the pearl's momentum for the time being. Roar. However, just as the pearl stopped in the air for a moment, a dragon's roar came from the pearl again. The pearl's brilliance turned into a flood dragon again. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it pounced at the seal. Not only did it break through the layers of shadow, but it also made the light of the coiling dragon below the seal dim. So arrogant? Xiaohua was shocked. His eyes lit up again. He hurriedly rubbed his hands and countless bolts of lightning rushed towards the pearl. The dragon formed by the pearl seemed to understand Xiaohua's thoughts and charged into the void. Although the void was sealed by Xiaohua, a crack appeared where the light landed. When the dragon formed by the pearl charged into the spatial crack, it suddenly turned its head. The dragon had a mocking expression on its face. Ao Qian. You're just courting death. Xiaohua was furious. He raised his hand and waved it. An inconspicuous yellow light flew out from his hand, and when it landed in the air, it was an inconspicuous copper coin. Haha. Ao Qian's mocking face became even more hysterical. The pearl, which was supposed to fall into the spatial rift, paused for a brief moment, as if he was showing off and showing off. His wild laughter echoed throughout the entire East Sea, even stirring up waves on the surface of the ocean. Reverend Yun, if you have no money, feel free to come to my East Sea Dragon Palace. I can even give you any ocean crystal you want, not to mention how precious time is. Why should I give you a copper coin? This copper coin was naturally the copper coin of treasure fall that Xiaohua had bestowed upon Lu Yi. Xiaohua had originally not planned to use it, but Ao Qian had truly made him angry. His mind entered the space and forcefully took out the copper coin of treasure fall from Lu Yi's Qinkuan bag. When the copper coin of treasure fall was an extraordinary prehistoric treasure, it did not cause any ripples when it first appeared. But when it came close to the pearl, a powerful ripple immediately emanated from it and enveloped the pearl. After that, the dragon aura on the pearl completely disappeared, and its light was extinguished as well. It quickly transformed into a fist-sized ocean pearl and fell from the crack in space. Ah! Ao Qian's mocking expression froze on his face as he cried out in surprise. Embarrassment filled his eyes as he said, Reverend Yun, when the ocean pearl fell, the copper coin of treasure fall immediately shone with a yellow light. Like the tongue of a golden toad, it landed on the ocean pearl. Following the light, the ocean pearl flew to the side of the coin. After that, Xiaohua raised his hand and was about to take the coin. Roar. Ao Qian let out a furious roar. Reverend Yun, how dare you take my 4 Seas pearl? With Ao Qian's angry roar, Ao Qian's dragon body appeared in the sky. His dragon aura soared into the sky and flew towards Xiaohua. His silver-white dragon horn was filled with murderous fluctuations, causing the entire space to become chaotic. What was special was that the space around the copper coin of treasure fall was also shining with a dazzling silver-white light. Obviously, Ao Qian was going to snatch the 4 Seas pearl. Boom! Xiaohua waved his sleeve, causing the space within 100 miles to tremble. All the spatial anomalies were suppressed. He raised his eyes and gave Ao Qian a contemptuous look. Then, he performed the Qinkuan in the sleeve technique again and easily took the 4 Seas pearl and the copper coin of treasure fall. Only then did he say coldly, not only will I take your 4 Seas pearl, but I'll also take your life. As soon as his voice fell, Xiaohua raised his hand and took out the wishful steel staff. Buzz! The wishful steel staff buzzed and turned into a sky-high staff that crossed the sky and hit Ao Qian's dragon body. Unfortunately, although the wishful steel staff streaked across the sky and broke the space of the four seas array, it still could not stop Ao Qian's dragon aura. A loud roar burst out, but it still could not stop Ao Qian. The wishful steel staff was bounced back by Ao Qian's attack. The wishful steel staff of 5 elements? No, this is the sky-leveling staff. Ao Qian was also slightly surprised. He did not expect Xiao Hua's inconspicuous weapon to be so powerful. A moment later, Ao Qian came to his senses and cried out, "I finally understand why you came to the South Sea Dragon Palace." Chapter 43:20. Seeing that the wishful steel staff had been knocked back, Xiao Hua did not panic. After putting away the wishful steel staff, he raised his hand and patted the top of his head. Kacha! The sound of thunder sounded again. The 9 heavens divine thunder, the 5 qi thunder, the yin thunder of 3 corpses, and the Xian Ming thunder rushed out at the same time, turning into a big 4-colored hand above Xiao Hua's head. Above this big hand, the different thunderbolts gave birth to strange fluctuations. These fluctuations were sometimes annihilated and sometimes reborn. Moreover, when the big hand moved in the sky, there were countless spatial anomalies from time to time, either infinite vitality or sudden appearance of death. The unspeakable way of life and death actually showed a trace of power in this big hand. Although it was only a trace of power, Ao Qian's dragon aura was wiped out wherever the huge hand fell. The dragon's power was like the lament of an old woman in the face of death, resentful and powerless. Boom! The towering dragon aura was crushed into powder. Even Ao Qian's dragon body was imprisoned by the huge hand, and he could not easily break free from it even though he was waving his dragon tail. Ao Qian turned pale with fright. Suddenly, he swept his dragon tail toward the sea. The seawater, which was several times larger than a mountain, flew up with his dragon tail and smashed toward Xiao Hua's huge hand. Hee hee. Xiao Hua faintly smiled. He raised his hand and grabbed at the waves. Boom. All of the waves were grabbed and turned into pure sea crystals. These sea crystals instantly exploded, but it was also at this moment that Ao Qian's figure flickered and his afterimages appeared one after another. He actually managed to escape from Xiao Hua's hand. Ah! At this moment, a scream came from where Ao Qian was. Ao Qian, who had just escaped, was startled and hurriedly looked in that direction. He saw dragon blood flowing out of Ao Hong's abdomen, and Feng Wu proudly flapping his wings. The pride of a victor was self-evident. Damn it! Ao Qian cursed angrily. His ferocious dragon head suddenly turned and roared at Xiao Hua, "Reverend Yun, don't think that you and your friend have a very high cultivation base. The 4 Seas formation of the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas is definitely not something you can resist. The reason I haven't activated the real 4 Seas formation is to let you know the difficulty and retreat, so that you can cooperate with me. And you don't understand this king's painstaking efforts, you actually tried to kill me, the Dragon King of the 4 Seas. Since that's the case, don't blame this king for not giving face to the dragon ancestor and giving you a way out." Actually, Xiao Hua was also a little surprised in his heart. This 4 Seas great array looked very powerful. All of the space was sealed by the dragon kings of the 4 Seas. Even if a 9th grade essence energy cultivator fell in, they would still be restrained by the dragon kings of the 4 Seas. If he didn't have any special abilities, it would be very difficult for him to gain the upper hand. However, in less than 5 minutes, Wen Chu had clearly gained the upper hand. The 3 of them were on par with the 3 Sea Dragon Kings. They even vaguely had the upper hand. The 4 Seas Grand Array was not as powerful as Ao Qian had described. Of course, Xiao Hua also had some hope in his heart. He thought that the 4 Seas Grand Array was only at this level. After all, the 4 of them were 9th grade essence energy cultivators. On the hidden immortal continent, it was rare for 4 ninth grade essence energy cultivators to work together to break the 4C's grand array. Hearing Ao Qian's angry threat, Xiaohua was shocked. He immediately ordered Feng Wu, don't hesitate. Quickly kill the Dragon King of the West Sea. Yes. Feng Wu replied in her heart. Her beak immediately pecked at Ao Hong's forehead. Ao Hong couldn't dodge in time. Part of the dragon essence was swallowed by Feng Wu. How could Ao Hong dare to hesitate? He screamed and immediately disappeared into the void. Wu. Feng Wu flapped her wings. Several moonlight pillars shot into the void. However, under the void, other than the dragon patterns, Ao Hong's figure was nowhere to be seen. Ao. Seeing Ao Hong escape, Ao Qian, Ao Concrete, and Ao Go all raised their heads and roared. The 3 dragon kings also disappeared into the void. Fellow Taoists, be careful. Seeing the dragon kings of the 4C's escape at the same time, Xiaohua didn't dare to force them. He shouted, the dragon kings of the 4C's want to activate the real 4C's grand array, not waiting for Xiaohua's voice to land, boom 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 boom. 4 thunderous sounds, like the roars of 10,000 dragons, came from all directions of the sea surface. Then, 4 golden dragons suddenly rushed out from the source of these sounds, skyrocketing for 90,000 miles, piercing straight into the blue dome of heaven. 4 wills that resembled heaven and earth emerged from the dragon avatar and surged towards the surface of the sea from all 4 directions. Under the supreme wills, not a single ripple appeared on the surface of the sea. Even the dragon runes that were wreaking havoc earlier had stopped moving in the void. Xiaohua and the other 3 stood in the air. The will instantly annihilated them. Within his will, an irresistible feeling, a feeling that made people bend their knees, a feeling that made people prostrate themselves before him, was born. This is. Xiaohua was aghast. This feeling was very familiar to him. Back then, when he fought against the state preceptor of the Bronze Pillar State in the Black Wind Mountain Range, the state preceptor Leng Qingge used the 5-dragon jade seal to suppress Xiaohua. This feeling came from the 5-dragon jade seal. Moreover, when Xiaohua went to the Jade Pavilion meeting to seize the lot of the state preceptor, he also met the monarch of the state preceptor. The mountain and river seal wanted to suppress Xiaohua, and the same feeling came from the mountain and river seal. However, compared to the 4 wills in front of him, those 2 feelings were just the light of a firefly. The 4 wills in front of him were so terrifying and so vast. In the will, Xiaohua, Wen Chu, and Feng Wu's figures shrank rapidly. They were like ants in the world, unable to compete with the will of the world. On the contrary, the celestial being with the lowest cultivation level looked at this overwhelming aura in a daze. He didn't know what was going on. Rise. Xiaohua didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly took out the mountain and river seal. However, just as the mountain and river seal flew out of the space, it immediately let out a mournful cry. Its brilliance disappeared, and it fell from the air. It couldn't even fly up. Fellow Taoists. Xiaohua put away the mountain and river seal and exclaimed, I have some methods to resist, but I don't want to use them now. What about you? If you can't resist, I will ask fellow Taoist Ji to come out. Unexpectedly, although Wen Chu's figure was forced to shrink, the corners of his mouth revealed a slight smile. He replied, don't worry, we haven't reached the end of the line yet. If we ask fellow Taoist Ji to come out now, wouldn't we lose face? Is that so? Xiaohua was slightly surprised. He looked at Wen Chu and Feng Wu in disbelief and asked curiously, you actually have a magical ability that I don't know? We're nothing. Wen Chu chuckled. Look at fellow Taoist Heavenly Tao. He doesn't seem to have sensed this incomparably powerful intent at all. With him here, what do we have to be afraid of? All right. Xiaohua's eyes narrowed slightly. He looked in the direction where Ao Qian disappeared. Since his 3 clones still had methods that they hadn't revealed yet, he naturally wanted to see just how powerful the true Four Seas formation was. Buzz 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 buzz. The entire space collapsed rapidly, and the dragon statues that were originally soaring into the sky fell down with a loud rumble. At the place where the dragon statues fell, four golden dragon thrones slowly rose from the sea surface of the Four Seas Great Array. The golden light was more dazzling than the sun, and the dragon thrones were more dazzling than the rising sun. On the dragon thrones, the dragon kings of the Four Seas sat calmly with dragon crowns on their heads and dragon robes on their bodies. Incomparably majestic auras that were filled with the authority of heaven and earth seeped out from their scales, dragon horns, dragon whiskers, and other parts. This aura surged from all directions and firmly suppressed Xiao Hua and the others. Dragon thrones. Dragon thrones. Dragon thrones. Xiao Hua struggled to straighten his back and shouted unyieldingly, "I understand now. These four dragon thrones that are filled with the intent of the dragon clan are the foundation of the Four Seas formation that you set up. At the same time, they are where the authority of the Four Seas formation lies." That's right. Ao Qian coiled on the dragon thrones. The golden light from the dragon crown merged with the dragon thrones, and his voice was like that of a god. It actually had the power to make people submit without hesitation. All under the Four Seas are my water, and all the clans of the Four Seas are my people. Not to mention that you're a member of the dragon clan. Even if you're not, you'll still have to crawl before the dragon thrones. Daoist Min, this is your last chance. If you still don't submit, I'll suppress you on behalf of the dragon clan. I understand. Xiao Hua sighed. Ao Jia is truly cunning. How is the title of Dragon Master false? It can't be any more real. I originally didn't plan to use this dragon crown anymore, but you're forcing me. I can only choose to resist. Ha ha ha. Ao Qian laughed loudly. Confucian cultivators have said that humans are the five elements: heaven, earth, king, family, and teacher. You, a dragon master, can only be ranked at the bottom. How can you contend against the will of heaven and earth of this king? Sigh. Xiao Hua took out the dragon crown. Sure enough, when the dragon crown rushed out, its elegant aura immediately blocked most of that irresistible will. Xiao Hua wore the dragon crown and sighed. You're only the king of the dragon clan. How can you know the righteousness of the dragon clan? How can the will of heaven and earth be represented by you? Your dragon thrones are only imperial authority, and imperial authority is only the will of the monarch. It's your will as a king. It's far from being comparable to heaven and earth. At this point, Xiao Hua came back to his senses and shook his head. This poor Daoist was wrong. This is not the real Four Seas Grand Formation. The previous Grand Formation was the real Four Seas Grand Formation. The current Four Seas Grand Formation is only an improvement you obtained from the Immortal Palace's throne and the Immortal Emperor's authority after you joined the Immortal Palace. Unfortunately, Ao Qian didn't answer. He just smiled and asked, Daoist Min, it's useless to say more. Have you thought it through? Ha ha ha. Xiao Hua threw his head back and laughed loudly. In the midst of his laughter, he answered sonorously, even if you're the ruler of the dragon thrones, even if you're using imperial authority to force me, you're still not heaven and earth. You're still not justice. I am not afraid. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it. Ao Qian was furious. Since you want to die, then this king will fulfill your wish. Don't think that what Dragon Island gave you is a protective talisman. Chapter 43-21. With that, Ao Qian opened his mouth and spat out the dragon seal he obtained from the Immortal Palace. At the same time, Ao Tsong, Ao Go, and Ao Hong also opened their mouths. Identical dragon seals fell into the air and landed on the dragon throne. Swoosh. The dragon throne, which already represented the will of the dragon clan, gained a supreme imperial aura. The destiny of the human clan from the immortal palace made the will of the dragon clan even more powerful, and its will spread throughout the entire space. Boom! With a loud bang, Xiaohua's dragon crown once again fell from the sky. Faced with this kind of heaven and earth order, Xiaohua was helpless. He could only open his mouth. Pooh! Sword light rushed out, and his entire golden body flashed with sword light. His body transformed into a heart-shaped sword intent, and he chanted, "The wrath of the Son of Heaven, 1,000,000 corpses float, 1,000 miles of blood flow. The wrath of the commoner, 5 steps of blood flow, a world of mourning. Since I am unyielding, I will use my sword to travel 1,000 miles." Just as Xiaohua was feeling helpless, the celestial shouted, "Fellow Taoist, don't worry, I will help you." Following the celestial's voice, he actually stepped onto a cloud and flew towards Xiaohua with a demonic weapon. Damn it, this celestial has a primitive body. At the beginning of the primitive era, there was no imperial power. This bastard is indomitable, completely ignoring the so-called imperial power and the will of the dragon clan. Seeing the celestial ignore the Four Seas Great Formation, Xiaohua bitterly smiled. He sighed in his heart and hurriedly ordered, "Fellow celestial, you don't need to worry about me. Although I can't kill the Dragon King with my sword, I can still protect myself. You just need to kill Aogo." "Oh." The celestial stared blankly for a moment, then responded. He turned his head and urged the bone dragon spear to rush towards Aogo, who was sitting on the dragon throne. Seeing that the celestial was not afraid of the dragon throne, Aogo's face turned bitter. He hurriedly patted the dragon throne, causing the surface of the Four Seas Great Formation to ripple as he prepared to meet the enemy. On the other side, Wen Chu smiled and said, "Fellow cultivator, don't panic. Watch my methods." Following Wen Chu's voice, he clapped his hands. With a rumbling sound, the 5-colored genuine qi rushed out and turned into endless auspicious clouds in the air. In the south where Wen Chu was, on the dragon throne where the Dragon King of the South Sea Ao Tsongda sat, the entire sky was covered by endless auspicious clouds and multicolored light. Within the auspicious clouds and multicolored light, all kinds of auspicious dragons and phoenixes, abundant grains, and picturesque territories were born. An indescribable aura shrouded the Dragon King of the South Sea. Not good. Ao Concrete seemed to have thought of something. He screamed and slapped the dragon seal with his hand. The imperial power of the immortal palace soared into the sky, trying to disperse the vision. Unfortunately, the aura didn't reach more than 10,000 feet. Woo! At the top of Wen Chu's head, another strange whistling sound was heard. The whistling sound was mixed with the sound of chanting and wind and rain. It was truly a rhythm of wind, rain, and reading that entered one's ears. This is... Ao Tsongda's eyes were filled with fear. Sure enough, with this sound, thousands of scrolls flew out and condensed into a brilliant Wen Chu star. The majestic starlight above the Literati star instantly enveloped the southern part of the Four Seas Formation. The dragon qi and imperial power that Ao Tsongha had activated met the starlight and the power of the saints in midair. Boom boom boom. Explosive sounds rang out one after another. The dragon image immediately collapsed and fell toward the dragon throne that Ao Tsongha was on. The starlight from the Literati star swept past the dragon throne. Kacha kacha, sounds of cracking suddenly rang out. Whether it was the dragon throne, the dragon seal, or even the dragon crown on Ao Tsongha's head, they were all unable to bear the heavy burden and cracked. Fellow Taoist Wen Chu's methods are only a so-so. Seeing Wen Chu use the Wen Chu star to fight, the Feng Wu proudly smiled. She looked at Xiaohua and shouted, "Fellow Taoist, don't be anxious. I will also help you." As the phoenix parasol let out a cry, it flapped its wings. Boom! 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 7 powerful booms soared into the sky. 7 pillars of starlight shot into the clouds above the Four Seas Grand Array. These starlights were even more dazzling than the literate star. They even pierced 7 huge holes in the clouds. You. Ao Chu was injured by the Feng Wu's attack, so when he saw the 7 pillars of starlight, he almost jumped up from his dragon throne. He looked at the Feng Wu in disbelief and shouted at the pillars of starlight. Wang! Wang! Even more powerful explosions came from the pillars of starlight. To the north of the Feng Wu, the entire space was shaking. Countless rays of light shot out from the Feng Wu's back, and wherever the starlight went, space collapsed. The so-called True Foresee's grand formation that Ao Chu spoke of was actually torn to pieces by the light. Not only that, but under the starlight, the 7 stars of the Big Dipper slowly rose. Each star looked like the Feng Wu. Each of the 7 stars was several times more majestic and crazier than the Wen Chu star, especially the power of the stars and the moon, which rushed toward the dragon throne in the north. Ao Hong couldn't compare to Ao Shuadong at all. Whether it was his draconic aura, imperial power, or the dragon throne, they all decayed under the power of the 7 stars of heaven and earth. Even the throne and the dragon crown on Ao Hong's forehead cracked and almost split in half. Ah! The people of the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas were scared out of their wits. Ao Chu didn't even have the thought of using the dragon throne to attack Xiaohua. He screamed, and his voice echoed in the entire space. You're actually a great saint of the demon clan? How is this possible? Ao Go shouted as he dodged the attacks of the Celestials. When did a great saint appear in the 1,000 demons sacred realm? How come we didn't know? At this time, the dragon kings of the 4 Seas felt like they had smashed their own feet with a rock. Although the 4 Seas grand formation wasn't good, it was still able to trap Xiaohua and the other 3. Even the dragon kings of the 4 Seas were only at a slight disadvantage. But when they used the 4 Seas grand formation that they had been planning for a long time, it couldn't even withstand a single blow. It wasn't that the 4 Seas grand formation wasn't strong, but they really met a hard nail. They never thought that, not to mention the fact that the Celestials were of the Great Desolate Era and weren't restricted by imperial power, the Wen Chu star was actually a genuine Wen Chu star. The Feng Wu was also a genuine new great saint of the demon clan. Moreover, this great saint of the demon clan was a 7 stars great saint. With these 3 clones, there was no need for Xiaohua to transform into a sword. The 4 Seas grand formation that used imperial power and draconic might as its foundation had already collapsed. Ha ha ha. Xiaohua laughed loudly. You are really shallow. Heaven, earth, king, family, and teacher. The so-called imperial power and the authority of the dragon clan are nothing but nothingness under the power of heaven and earth. Ga. Just behind Xiaohua's laughter, the Feng Wu once again let out a phoenix cry that shook heaven and earth. The Feng Wu's voice sounded in Ao Hong's ears. How can a dragon king without the fire dragon soul still be called a dragon king? You're not even as good as a little loach. Boom. The moment the Feng Wu's voice fell, she opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of demonic qi that landed on the 7 stars star pillar. The huge power of the stars and moon directly crashed into Ao Hong's dragon body. Ka ka ka. The brilliance of the dragon throne couldn't block the power of the stars and moon at all. Ao Hong's huge dragon body let out a cracking sound. The cracks were like dry earth, strangely appearing. Pieces of dragon scales fell from the surface of his body, and streams of dragon blood spurted out from the cracks like fountains. Ao Hong screamed. His dragon body rapidly shrank and fell from the dragon throne. Humph. Seeing Ao Hong fall from the dragon throne, Xiaohua coldly snorted. This was his plan. The strength of the dragon kings of the 4 Seas was around the middle of the 9th grade of essence energy. They borrowed the power of the 4 Seas great array. Xiaohua and his 3 clones might not be their match. If there was any chance in this great array, Ao Hong would be their biggest weakness. Because Xiao Hua was very clear in his heart that the West Sea Dragon Palace's nature was fire. Xiao Hua had obtained the fire dragon's soul in the West Sea Eye. If there were no surprises, it must be the West Sea Dragon Palaces. Now that the fire dragon's soul was obtained by the little white dragon, Ao Hong definitely didn't have the fire dragon's soul. Therefore, Ao Hong was the weakest of the dragon kings of the four seas. Therefore, Xiao Hua ordered the strongest of the four, the Feng Wu, to deal with Ao Hong. Who would have thought that the dragon kings of the four seas would actually use the power of imperial power? In this way, the Feng Wu with the Big Dipper star mark was the natural nemesis of the dragon kings of the four seas. And it was really easy for him to deal with the weakest Ao Hong. The western side of the four seas great array was lost, and a flaw immediately appeared in the entire four seas great array. There was no need for Xiao Hua to give any more instructions. The Feng Wu spread his wings again, and a huge Big Dipper star light pillar immediately fell around the dragon throne, separating the western side from the four seas great array. Many thanks, fellow Taoist. Xiao Hua understood. He released his mind and was about to put the dragon throne into his space. However, when the dragon throne fell into his mind, the dragon throne was actually as heavy as 10,000 caddies. Xiao Hua's mind was unable to move it at all. Damn it. Xiao Hua immediately understood and cursed in his heart. He was not a dragon. Although there was some dragon chi in his body, if he wanted to control this dragon throne that was said to represent the will of the dragon race, it was impossible. Roar. Ao Qian was shocked and hurriedly urged the dragon throne, wanting to take back the dragon king of the West Sea's dragon throne. But how could the Feng Wu let him succeed? The power of the stars and moons surged, blocking the dragon throne. The dragon king of the West Sea fell from the dragon throne, and a flaw appeared in the four seas great array. And when the Feng Wu separated the dragon throne from the four seas great array, the entire four seas great array was broken, and it no longer had the ability to stop Xiao Hua. Swoosh. Like a heavy rain, endless blue water fell from the sky, and the space of the four seas great array collapsed. Boom. Wen Chu smiled. The Wen Chu star turned into a book and fell into his body. The sword light around Xiao Hua's body disappeared, revealing a Taoist cultivator who had a card up his sleeve. As for the Feng Wu, his wings protected the dragon throne, and the Big Dipper star mark was also hidden on his back. Chapter 43-22. Outside the Four Seas Formation, there were still over 1 million members of the Sea Race. At this moment, these members of the Sea Race had surrounded Xiao Hua and the others. Behind the Sea Race, the entire South Sea Dragon Palace had changed under the control of the South Sea Great General. Within the tens of thousands of li of the Dragon Palace, all the palaces were emitting light. All the seawater was also faintly fluctuating. Nearly endless water elemental energy of heaven and earth surged over from 100,000 li to 1,000,000 li of the sea and poured into the Dragon Palace. The entire Dragon Palace and all the members of the Sea Race had formed another great formation. A true overturn oceans formation. When the Four Seas Formation collapsed, the entire overturn oceans formation immediately appeared in front of the South Sea Dragon King Ao Tsongda. Ao Tsongda laughed nastily. This was what he had instructed Ao Xian to do before he laid down the Four Seas Formation. He activated the Dragon Emperor without hesitation. Once the Dragon Emperor entered the Overturn Oceans Formation, she became the formation eye of the entire Overturn Oceans Formation. The South Sea Dragon King Dragon Emperor, who originally ruled the South Sea, immediately borrowed the power of the Overturn Oceans Formation to create a huge pressure that pressed down on Xiao Hua from 1,000,000 li of the sea. Good. Facing the power of such a great formation, even Ao Qian could not help but praise. This kind of power of the sea, the power of 1,000,000 members of the Sea Race, was not something that a few ninth-grade essence energy cultivators could resist. Even if there was a literary star and a great sage among them. Ao Qian could almost see the scene of Xiao Hua and the others escaping in a sorry state. Damn it. Everyone could see the anger in Ao Tsongda's eyes. He had truly suffered under Wen Chu's hands. Only then did he fiercely shout, "So what if you are a literary star? So what if you can activate Wen Chu to become a star? Can the will of the many sages resist the will of the people?" Facing such a heavy pressure, Wen Chu, Tianren, and Feng Wu's expressions changed. They could easily escape without any effort, but if they resisted, not only would they be injured, how many of the million members of the sea race would be able to survive? Although Buddha Bodhi had already attained the Maitreya Buddha fruit, Xiaohua's several clones also had a compassionate heart. They didn't want to fight to the death with these innocent dragon race and sea race. Ha ha ha. Only Xiaohua's expression didn't change. Looking at the entire southern sea dragon palace turning into an incomparably large array, he couldn't help but laugh loudly. His tone was filled with pride. This Xiao doesn't know if anyone from the 3 continents has already caused havoc in the dragon palace. However, from today onwards, when someone causes havoc in the dragon palace again, it won't be unprecedented. Because at this moment, I will destroy the South Sea Dragon Palace. While speaking, Xiaohua raised his hand and took out the Kunlun mirror. He called out, "Fellow Taoist Kuang, it's time for you to show yourself. Your descendants really miss you, forcing I again and again." Roar. As the Kunlun mirror's light pillar pretended to penetrate, a powerful dragon roar rushed out from the light pillar. A dragon aura that was not inferior to the dragon emperor of the 4 seas rushed out in all directions with the dragon roar. "Reverend Yun?" Ao Qian cried out in disbelief once again. He had always thought that Xiaohua was Reverend Yun, but it never occurred to him that Reverend Yun was actually someone else. What the hell is going on here? Ao Qian felt a headache coming on, as if he was drawing water with a bamboo basket. But at this moment, he had no time to feel the bitterness of having nothing, as he exerted all his strength to drive the Dragon Emperor to resist the oppressive aura of Reverend Yun from the Dragon Realm. When Reverend Yun's dragon body appeared in the Southern Sea Dragon Palace, an aura of a king returning to the Dragon Emperor of the Dragon Palace of the 3 Seas pressed down forcefully. However, even Reverend Yun felt that he could not withstand the entire Dragon Palace's array alone. Nevertheless, Reverend Yun was not in a hurry. He threw his head back and roared as he reached out his dragon claw and raised the ancient Pangu axe high into the air. The broken Pangu axe was just a shadow on the primitive continent, but when it appeared here, countless powers of laws poured down crazily. As the light and shadow twisted, the space collapsed once again. Strange black and white ripples rushed into the shadow of the axe, and in just a flash, an axe that looked ordinary to the naked eye or divine will revealed its true form. As Yun's dragon claw waved the handle of the axe, the Pangu axe began to move gently in the dragon palace. A soft swoosh rang out, softer than the sound of a flying sword cutting through silk, and gentler than a breeze caressing one's face. Just like that, a crack appeared on the surface of the Pangu axe. The broken 4 Seas formation was cut in half, the 7 Stars Palace was cut in half, the tens of thousands of oceanic clans were cut in half, the entire Dragon Palace was cut in half, and even the ocean region of 1,000,000 miles was cut in half. All the dragons, all the oceanic clans, and even Xiaohua were stunned. Boom. In the end, a huge rumbling sound came from the bottom of the sea. 1,000,000 miles long, 100 miles wide, and 1,000 miles deep trench appeared in the Dragon Palace that had been split into 2 halves. Only then did all the sea race awaken. Roar. Reverend Yun gave a furious roar as a golden light burst out from his body, and the Pangu axe disappeared into his dragon body. Who dares to attack me again? I'll kill him. Reverend Yun's weak voice rang out as he descended towards the mirror of Kunlun. Fellow Taoist. Xiaohua hurriedly stopped him and transmitted his voice to him, the dragon throne of the Dragon King of the Western Ocean, Reverend Yun nodded. The dragon claw had covered Ao Hong's dragon throne, and as the dragon claw raised, Reverend Yun easily grabbed it. Xiaohua was overjoyed. He shook the mirror of Kunlun and pulled Reverend Yun into his space. Ao Qian, Ao Concrete, and Ao Go were all struck dumb. If Ao Hong had not fainted, he would have been struck dumb as well. All the oceanic clans stared blankly at the Dragon Palace, which had been split in half, and at Xiao Hua, who was standing proudly in the ocean. The Dragon Palace of the Southern Ocean had never been so quiet. Not even a fish dared to swim in the palace, and the entire ocean was rocked by towering waves. But the bottom of the ocean was so quiet that not even a ripple could be seen. After the time it took to finish a pot of tea, Xiao Hua cleared his throat and said, "Dragon King of the Southern Ocean, you may withdraw your subordinates now." Ao Concrete recovered from his shock and looked at Ao Qian. Both of them exchanged a glance, then Ao Concrete said coldly, "The Dragon Palace of the Southern Ocean is not at the end of the line yet. We still have the strength to fight again." The strength to fight again? A sarcastic smile emerged on the corner of Xiao Hua's mouth. He pointed a finger into the distance and said, "You can't even protect your fourth prince. How can you talk about the strength to protect yourself?" Ao Concrete was slightly startled, and he hurriedly turned to where Xiao Hua was pointing. Sure enough, there were a few dragon generals guarding there. Although their faces were filled with panic, they were still on high alert. Behind them, the fourth prince, Ao Qian's dragon body was covered in large spots. The edges of the spots had long festered, and the dragon blood that gushed out had turned pitch black. Meanwhile, strange dragon blood was gushing out of Ao Qian's head, eyes, mouth, and other parts of his body. It seemed that he had died there long ago. Ao Concrete's body stiffened, and he immediately said, "Ao Qian plotted to kill his own brother, and he has violated the law of the four seas. This king will not let him live for another day. Now that he has repented, he took his own life first. At least he knows how to behave." "Hee, you're so stubborn." Xiao Hua chuckled. The Kunlun mirror vibrated, and a beam of light shot out. Wang, wang. Another thunderous rumble sounded as two enormous lightning boats appeared in front of the Sea Tribe's experts. On the lightning boats, other than Dragon Lady Jiang Hong, there was also Lu Yi. Under their command, the Lu family's descendants, Shenhua Continent's Dragon Clan's members, and even several 100,000 Fortune Gate's disciples appeared. Grotto River Dragon Clan? Ao Concrete's eyes narrowed, and he exclaimed in surprise. He was the master of the Dragon Palace. How could he not see the purity of the Dragon Clan's bloodline? How could he not see the strength of the Dragon Clan's descendants? After the two thunder boats and hundreds of thousands of descendants of the Dragon Clan flew out, the courage that Ao Tsong had mustered disappeared again. The Dragon Clan of the Shenhua continent could not compare to the Dragon Clan of the Southern Sea Dragon Palace, and the Dragon Clan's descendants could not compare to the Dragon Clan of the Southern Sea Dragon Palace. However, the Dragon Clan's descendants were much stronger than the Dragon Clan of the Southern Sea Dragon Palace. The origin energy of the Shenhua continent was different from that of the Three Rivers and Four Seas. Although the Dragon Clan's descendants only had a few thousand years of cultivation, their strength was not much weaker than the Dragon Clan of the Southern Sea Dragon Palace. It was difficult for the Dragon Clan to reproduce in the Three Rivers and Four Seas, but it was easy on the Shenhua continent. The Dragon Clan's population was not much less than the Dragon Clan of the Southern Sea Dragon Palace. Although Xiao Hua did not release all of the Dragon Clan's descendants, anyone would have made a decision after seeing the endless stream of Dragon Clan's descendants flying out. Dragon Master Xiao. Ao Qian hurriedly asked, "What is the meaning of this?" "Nothing." Xiao Hua replied indifferently. "I don't like being threatened. Today, either the fish dies or the net breaks." "All right." Ao Shuachin gritted his teeth and raised his dragon claw. "In that case, let's fight again." Ao Qian originally wanted to bargain with Xiao Hua, but seeing that Xiao Hua had so many trump cards, he could not deal with him at all. He could only shout, "Third brother, don't be anxious." Humph. Ao Shuachin snorted coldly, but in reality, he was already relieved. Ao Qian continued, Dragon Island has already issued an order. The Dongtian River has already been removed from the Four Seas Dragon Clan's list of targets. Now, they are also a member of the Dragon Clan. If we rashly start a war, not only will we go against Dragon Island's order, but we will also cause discord among the Dragon Clan's descendants. Damn it, they are really selling dog meat under false pretenses. Xiaohua snorted and thought to himself, they just wanted to betray Dragon Island, and now they are using Dragon Island's order as an excuse. This face is thicker than the South Sea. Even Panga's axe cannot cut it open. Since the Dongtian River's Dragon Clan has appeared, how can the Dragon Clan of the South Sea retreat? Ao Shuachin replied. Dragon Master Xiao. Ao Qian hurriedly asked, this is all a misunderstanding. Dragon Master Xiao, please forgive us and take back the Dongtian River's Dragon Clan first. They have already come out. How can we just turn back? Xiaohua understood that this was the time to negotiate, so he immediately went with the flow and asked. Chapter 43-23. If you don't hand over the West Sea Dragon Emperor, my Dragon Clan of the South Sea Dragon Palace will never back down. Ao Tsongha shouted with a guilty conscience. Xiaohua rubbed his nose and looked at Ao Shuachin thoughtfully. He nodded and said, yes, South Sea Dragon King is right. If you don't satisfy me, I won't back down. Ao Qian was overjoyed. He wasn't afraid of Xiaohua asking for a price. He was afraid that Xiaohua wouldn't ask for a price. Ao Qian raised his dragon claw and set up a silent barrier. He said, Dragon Master Xiao, what conditions do you want to return the West Sea Dragon Emperor to my West Sea Dragon Palace? When it came to bargaining, Xiaohua wasn't inferior to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. He waved his hand calmly and said, let's not talk about the Dragon Emperor for now. Let's discuss how to let the Heavenly Abode River Dragon Clan return. What? Ao Shuachin almost vomited blood when he heard that. He said angrily, you want conditions for your hundreds of thousands of dragons to come out. What about my South Sea Dragon Palace's formation? I didn't ask you to set up the formation. You asked for it. Xiaohua replied bluntly, and the Heavenly Abode River Dragon Clan was forced out by you. It's your fault. Then what conditions do you want? Ao Qian was really helpless. He could only swallow his anger and ask. Simple. Xiaohua replied casually, metal and wood elemental magnetism. You. Ao Shuachin trembled with anger. The trial formation of the Seven Stars Palace is used by my South Sea Dragon Clan to stimulate the dragon bloodline. The metal and wood elemental magnetism is the core of the formation. Without waiting for Ao Shuachin to finish, Xiaohua retorted, losing the trial formation is better than having the dragon bloodline of the South Sea Dragon Palace disappear. Xiaohua, you're threatening me. Ao Shuachin was furious. Xiaohua shrugged and said with a smile, if you think so, then just take it as a threat. I don't care about it. Third brother. Ao Qian hurriedly said, Xiao Longshire wants to use the metal and wood magnets to refine the five-element wishful heaven cudgel. This kind of primordial ominous weapon has not appeared in the world for many years. If third brother takes out the metal and wood magnets, it can be considered as forming a good karma. Furthermore, today's matter was caused by the South Sea Dragon Palace. I think we can agree to this condition. Ao Shuahui felt as if his teeth had been knocked out. He didn't know what to say, but when he heard Ao Qian mention the five elements wishful sky cudgel, he seemed to understand something. He looked at Ao Qian and then at Xiaohua, gritting his teeth. All right. This king agrees. However, the metal and wood elemental magnetism is right there. If Dragon Master Xiao can't take it away, then don't blame my Southern Sea Dragon Palace for not agreeing to this condition. You just need to agree. Xiaohua laughed as he activated the Kunlun mirror and released Reverend Yun. Xiao Hua had been to the space of metal and wood elemental magnetism before, and he had seen that the South Sea Dragon Palace had already refined the metal and wood elemental magnetism. Therefore, it was impossible for him to take it away casually. Therefore, after leaving his blood essence behind, he flew out of the space and waited quietly for his bloodline to permeate the metal and wood elemental magnetism. And now, when he saw how easily Reverend Yun faced the Dragon Emperor, he immediately thought of Reverend Yun. Sure enough, when Reverend Yun appeared, Ao Shuahui's face turned pale again. When Reverend Yun breathed out a dragon aura and sucked the metal and wood elemental magnetism into the space, Ao Shuahui's head drooped down, looking dejected. Xiao Longsher. Ao Qian asked again, can we discuss the matter of the Dragon Emperor now? Of course not. Xiao Hua refused without even thinking about it. Why? Ao Qian was taken aback. Can't the dragons in Heavenly Abode River go back? What about my fellow Taoists? Xiao Hua looked at Feng Wu, Wen Chu, and Heavenly Man and said proudly, they are stars of Confucianism and great saints of the demon race. Do you think they can leave so easily? Then, Ao Qian looked at Feng Wu with fear and asked in a low voice, what is your condition, Xiao Longsher? Xiao Hua glanced at Ao Go, who shrunk his neck as a bad feeling rose from the bottom of his heart. The North Sea Dragon Palace should have an innate mother of wood, right? Xiao Hua smiled and said, it is exactly what I need to refine the 5 elements heaven cudgel. Lord of North Sea, please bear the pain and part with it. Ao Go nearly jumped up when he heard that. Xiao Hua, you want an innate mother of wood. How can there be an innate mother of wood in the entire 3 rivers and 4 seas? How can the innate mother of wood in my North Sea Dragon Palace possibly? Before Ao Go could finish, Xiao Hua shrugged, clapped his hands and said, it doesn't matter. Since the Lord of North Sea is not willing, I won't mention it again. Later, I'll invite fellow Taoist Feng Wu to the North Sea Dragon Palace. I won't go. Feng Wu replied coldly. Let fellow Taoist Ao go and give the North Sea Dragon Palace a blow, sigh. Ao Go was helpless. Xiao Hua said to let Feng Wu go to the North Sea Dragon Palace, but how could he not know the meaning behind those words? It was a threat to Ao Go. Feng Wu would definitely not let Ao Go return to the North Sea Dragon Palace safely. Xiao Hua rolled his eyes and asked, how about it? Pooh. Ao Go did not hesitate. He opened his dragon mouth and a ball of flame-like dragon chi flew out. At the center of the dragon chi was a dot of innate mother of wood. Above the dragon chi, the great purity azure light floated there like a wisp of azure smoke. Great! Xiao Hua had already stored the innate mother of wood into his space. Xiao Longsher, do you have any other conditions? This time, Ao Qian learned his lesson and did not directly ask about the West Sea Dragon Emperor. High-level wind escape technique. Xiao Hua looked at Ao Qian and rubbed his thumb and index finger together. This is the price I have to pay for being frightened by the South Sea Dragon Palace. You. Facing Xiao Hua's exorbitant demand, Ao Go's dragon body kept trembling. All right. This time, Ao Qian was very nimble. He opened his mouth and a dragon shell flew out and landed in front of Xiao Hua. This was left behind by a wind attribute great demon that I killed in the past. See if you can use it. Xiao Hua was stunned at first, then he was overjoyed. He did not expect things to go so smoothly. He reached out and took it. He scanned it with his Yuan will and smiled. Not bad. I will kindly accept this. As long as Xiao Longsher likes it. Ao Qian smiled. I wonder if we can talk about the Dragon Emperor now. Not yet. Xiao Hua smiled. I have one last condition. Of course, this condition is very simple. Others may not know, but the dragon race of the 4 seas definitely knows. Ao Qian's face flashed with anger. Just as he was about to get angry, a low groan was heard. Ao Hong, who had fainted, raised his head. Ao Qian glanced at him and his anger disappeared. He turned and asked Xiao Hua, I wonder what is Xiao Longshi's last condition? Hearing how Ao Qian emphasized the word last, Xiao Hua knew that this was his last chance. He answered without hesitation. Since the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas is in charge of the Four Seas ocean shipping, you should know about the origin of water, right? Which Dragon Palace has it? Just give me a little bit of it. What? Ao Qian was flabbergasted. He was about to fly into a rage. If not for the fact that he was afraid that Xiao Hua would snatch the Dragon Emperor of the East Seas away again, he would have jumped up long ago. His breathing was already uneven. He said angrily, Xiao Hua. You are going too far. Dragon King is of the dragon race, not my human race. At best, you are going too far. Xiao Hua saw that Ao Qian had lost his mind and answered with a smile. The Four Seas are so big, and it is the center of the three continents' water flow. If the three continents have the origin of water, it should be in the Four Seas, right? Seeing Xiao Hua's smile, Ao Qian's anger subsided. He knew that Xiao Hua was asking for too much. He calmed down for a moment and shook his head. It is not that I am unwilling, nor is it that my Dragon Palace of the Four Seas is unwilling. It is that there is no origin of water in the Four Seas. If you want to find the origin of water, you should go to the three rivers. They are the foundation of the world's water sources. In that case, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas does not want the Dragon Emperor of the West Seas? Xiao Hua threatened. Ao Hong said weakly, I have never seen the origin of water in the Four Seas. Where does Dragon Master Xiao want me to find it? If Dragon Master Xiao insists on using this as a condition, then my Dragon Palace of the West Seas does not want the Dragon Emperor. How could Xiao Hua not know the value of the origin of water? Seeing that Ao Hong had spoken, he waved his hand casually and said with a smile, forget it, since there is no such thing, this Xiao will not mention it. Should we return the Dragon Emperor of the West Seas now? Ao Hong had received Ao Shuachin's voice transmission and already knew the ins and outs. He gritted his teeth and asked. Of course. Xiao Hua knew that even a rabbit would bite when cornered. Of course, he would not let these dragons jump over the wall like dogs. He hurriedly replied, this Xiao has already felt the sincerity of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Now, we can talk about the Dragon Emperor of the West Seas with you all. What? Dragon King of the West Seas asked curiously. You asked for so many things from my Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Could it be? Xiao Hua smiled coldly. Looking at Ao Hong, whose dragon blood had already begun to heal, he nodded and said, that's right. Previously, it was just some appetizers. Now, it is the real feast. Ao Hong's heart thumped. He looked at Ao Qian. Ao Qian's face was also green. He nodded slightly at Ao Hong. Damn it. Ao Hong had just cursed when dragon chi rushed out of his body again. After a while, it slowly retracted. Xiao Hua did not move and watched quietly. He believed that the current Ao Qian knew his situation better than Ao Qian. There was no way he would not accept his conditions. All of Ao Hong's reactions at this time were just a bluff. And this kind of behavior could only make Xiao Hua feel more confident in his heart. Sure enough, after a while, Ao Hong took a deep breath and asked, Dragon Master Xiao, what conditions do you have? The treasury of the West Seas Dragon Palace. Xiao Hua had heard from Xianqing hundreds of years ago that there were countless treasures in the treasury of the West Seas Dragon Palace. How could he let go of this opportunity? Chapter 43-24. Impossible? Dragon Master Xiao, what are you thinking? Ao Hong rejected without hesitation. How can I give you the treasury of my West Sea Dragon Palace? No. Xiao Hua stretched out a finger and shook it slightly. this Shao will not ask for the entire treasury of your West Sea Dragon Palace. This Shao only wants 50%, 20%. Ao Hong immediately bargained, just like an ante buying cabbage in the market of the mortal realm. This Shao is a man of his word. If I say 50%, then 50%. Xiao Hua said resolutely, if I want to bargain with you, then I won't ask for 50%, 30%. Ao Hong clenched his teeth and said, Dragon Master Xiao, you don't even know what 30% of my West Sea Dragon Palace's treasury means. TCH. Xiao Hua snorted disdainfully, proudly pointing at the dragons outside the restriction and said, these dragons and their descendants were all raised by this Shao. Do you think this old man doesn't know the situation of the West Sea Dragon Palace's treasury? Besides, only with the West Sea Dragon Emperor can you control the West Sea Dragon King. Then the treasury of the West Sea Dragon Palace will be full sooner or later. If you don't have the West Sea Dragon Emperor. At this point, Xiaohua didn't need to say anything more. Ao Hong knew how to choose. All right. Ao Hong narrowed his eyes, pondered for a moment, and said, this king agrees to take out 50% of the treasury to exchange for the Dragon Emperor. However, if Dragon Master can tell me the news of the West Sea Fire Dragon soul, this king is willing to take out another 20%. Xiao Hua smiled, and his eyes narrowed like a fox's. He also transmitted his voice, there's no need for you to take out 20% of the treasure vault as an exchange. After this Shao obtains 50%, this Shao will naturally tell you the information this Shao knows. This news, just treat it as a gift. Really? Ao Hong's heart moved, and he asked with some disbelief. Of course, this Shao has always been a man of his word. Xiao Hua patted his chest and answered proudly. All right. Ao Hong nodded solemnly and said, in that case, this king will return to the West Sea Dragon Palace, don't be in such a hurry. Xiao Hua smiled and said, this Shao will go with you. Now that you are heavily injured, if something were to happen, this Shao's treasures would disappear. How could that be possible? Longsher Shao. Seeing that Xiao Hua was about to leave, Ao Qian hurriedly asked, this king's 4 seas pearl. Xiao Hua rolled his eyes and said snappily, of course you can return it to the East Sea Dragon Palace, but you have to use 30% of the East Sea Dragon Palace's treasury in exchange. You. Ao Qian didn't say anything. Ao Go stretched out his dragon claw, trembling with anger, and said, the 4 seas pearl belongs to the 4 seas. If you take it, so be it. Now, I'll give you face and trade with you. Do you all have the qualifications to trade? Xiao Hua did not wait for Ao Go to finish speaking and coldly said, Ao Go, ask yourself honestly, how did you deal with this Shao in the beginning? Don't think that I don't know what you're planning. The reason why I'm standing here talking to you and making some deals with you is also because I'm giving face to Dragon Island, and because I'm a Dragon Master. I'm also giving face to Great Elder Aogia's painstaking efforts. If it weren't for this Shao wouldn't be bothered to talk to you all. Isn't it just killing dragons? It's not like this Shao hasn't killed dragons before. It's not like you all haven't seen the corpses of dragons that died at my hands. Back then, this Shao was only a 4th grade essence energy cultivator and dared to set up a blood steel in the bronze pillar state. Today, in the 4 seas. Is there anyone who can stop this Shao from killing? Speaking up to here, Xiao Hua's eyes were like lightning as he looked at Ao Qian, Ao Hong, Ao Concrete, and Ao Go. Although the 4 dragon kings didn't fear Xiao Hua's gaze, they didn't dare to look him in the eye for even a moment. Don't blame this Shao for speaking so harshly. It's you all who are too disgusting. Xiao Hua said again, perhaps you all have been sitting on the dragon throne for too long and your schemes are deeper than the South Sea. But you all must remember, the wrath of the Son of Heaven will cause millions of corpses to float and blood to flow for thousands of miles. The wrath of commoners will cause blood to flow for 5 steps and mourn for the world. In this world, there is no throne for a long time, only a long benevolence. After speaking, Xiaohua opened his mouth and a heart-shaped sword light soared into the sky. It streaked across the sky and easily broke the restriction set up by Ao Qian. Outside the restriction, Jiang Hong, Lu Yi, and the others controlled the thunderboat. They were on high alert. Although the entire South Sea Dragon Palace had been split in half by Xiaohua, there were still millions of Sea Clan members. The Dragon Clan led by Jiang Hong and the Dragon Clan descendants led by Lu Yi were still at a disadvantage in terms of numbers. Seeing Xiaohua appear, Jiang Hong and the other dragons were overjoyed. Lu Yi transmitted his voice, "Master, did the negotiations break down? Are we going to fight?" "Fight your head." Xiaohua glared at him and scolded, "These dragon descendants and sea race members might become your wife's subordinates in the future. Are you willing to kill them?" "Master, what do you mean?" Lu Yi was really confused because after the restriction was set up, the 4 dragon kings of the 4 seas appeared safe and sound. Their expressions and majesty were the same as before. "Nothing." Xiaohua laughed and said, "Your copper coin of treasure fall is quite useful. I'll borrow it first. I'll give you the spirit-binding shackles refined by your martial uncle Lei Ting." "Yes, master." Lu Yi was overjoyed. Actually, he had no use for the copper coin of treasurefall. He had heard Xiaohua talk about the spirit-binding shackles, which were refined from the antennae of the bee he killed on Tongtian Peak that day. When the Thunderclap Immortal was refining this item, Lu Yi had seen it before and had also drooled over this spirit-binding shackles. However, he had never thought that Xiaohua would bestow this item to him. Order all the disciples to leave the South Sea Dragon Palace and have Jiang Hong take them to Heavenly Abode River. Xiaohua swept his gaze and ordered, "Tell your wife that I found a dragon weapon for her. Don't be so petty in the future." "Yes, yes, master." Lu Yi's face turned red. He understood that Xiaohua could have said these words directly to Jiang Hong. The reason why Xiaohua asked him to pass the message was to tell him that Lu Yi should be the one in charge of the Lu family. He couldn't be too soft. After Xiaohua handed the spirit-binding shackles and 4 Seas Pearl to Lu Yi, he watched as Lu Yi issued orders. The Heavenly Abode River's dragon race and Lu family's descendants formed groups and left the South Sea Dragon Palace in batches. When Jiang Hong heard Xiaohua's orders, her expression became complicated. When Xiaohua asked her that day, she had clearly said that she had married into the Lu family and was a Fortune Gates disciple. She wouldn't ask about the Heavenly Abode River's dragon race. Then again, Jiang Hong was the Heavenly Abode River's dragon race's little princess. She was protected by the dragon race since she was young. How could she not be worried? When Xiaohua returned to the 3 mainlands, the first thing he did was to release Fu Jiwen and the others, leaving Jiang Hong and Lu Yi behind. This was definitely a blow to Jiang Hong. Perhaps Xiaohua's departure from the 3 mainlands was merely 200 years in the Heavenly Abode River's dragon race's eyes, but in Jiang Hong's eyes, it was 10,000 years. How could she not be homesick? Seeing that Xiaohua had sent her and her descendants out of the Shenhua continent to face the dragon clan of the South Sea Dragon Palace, Jiang Hong's heart burned with passion. She craved power even more than Lu Yi, or perhaps she had grown up in an atmosphere of power since she was young. Her bones were filled with the desire for power. How could she not understand Xiaohua's intentions? However, Xiaohua had suddenly ordered her to lead the dragon race to the Heavenly Abode River. She didn't think of anything else. She and Lu Yi were a loving couple. Although she was a little domineering in the family, she wouldn't refute Lu Yi's words. She was surprised that Xiaohua had suddenly changed his mind. She didn't understand what Xiaohua was planning. If Xiaohua wanted to rule the Heavenly Abode River, in Jiang Hong's mind, the Heavenly Abode River wouldn't be able to resist at all. Xiaohua didn't think as much as Jiang Hong. He looked at Jiang Hong's dazed expression and asked curiously, "Disciple? What are you thinking? Haven't you always wanted to go back and take a look? Now that I've asked you to go back, why are you hesitating?" "Master." Jiang Hong hesitated for a moment before replying softly, "The Heavenly Abode River's dragon race has been weak for a long time. If the Fortune Gate's disciples go there, I'm afraid they will collapse very quickly." Fuck. Xiao Hua immediately understood. He glared at Jiang Hong and scolded, "What kind of person do you think your master is? Why would your master put the Heavenly Abode River in his eyes? You're thinking too much." "Yes, master." Suddenly, Jiang Hong seemed to have been enlightened. She was really worried about her gains and losses. She had thought too much. Jiang Hong hurriedly wanted to bow down, but Xiao Hua waved his hand to stop her. "Go. Heavenly Abode River is your maiden home, but it is also yours. Louis won't care about the Heavenly Abode River's matters in the future, but he still has to take care of the Heavenly Abode River's matters. Otherwise, you won't be able to answer to the elders in the future." "Disciple understands." Jiang Hong replied carefully. Following Lu Yi's orders, she led a group of dragon race experts out of the South Sea Dragon Palace and headed towards the Heavenly Abode River. Seeing Lu Yi and Jiang Hong leading the Sea tribe away with great familiarity, giving clear orders, the army orderly, and all the Sea tribe carrying out their orders with an aura of being experienced on the battlefield, complicated expressions appeared on the faces of the dragon kings of the four seas. Xiao Hua's strength was outstanding, and he could suppress the dragon kings of the four seas. Although they were afraid, they weren't afraid because they had the dragon palaces of the four seas behind them. Xiao Hua could kill the dragon kings of the four seas, but he couldn't annihilate the dragon palaces of the four seas. However, Lu Yi and Jiang Hong's troops were different. They represented a force, and they also represented a kind of ability. They represented Xiao Hua's ability to wipe out the dragon palaces of the four seas. The dragon kings of the four seas looked at each other, and there was more meaning in their eyes than before. After Xiao Hua put away the thunderbolt, he turned to look at Ao Hong and asked with a faint smile, "Master of the West Sea, can you bring me to the dragon palace of the West Sea now?" "Dragon Master Xiao, please." Ao Hong's heart trembled. Although there was still some arrogance on his face that made the other Sea tribe members pay attention, his tone was faintly respectful. Chapter 43-25. More than a month later, on the shore of the North Sea, waves of water came from the depths of the sea. Holding hands, the snow-white water splashed towards the reefs on the shore. When it got close, the water gushed towards the reefs enthusiastically. Unfortunately, the reefs only gave the water a hard and cold feeling. The water splashed onto the reefs and instantly shattered. The passion that only lasted for a few breaths was once again submerged in the sea. As the sea slowly fell, the sound of the water splashing was like waves of weeping. At this moment, the sun was setting again. The orange sunlight scattered across the surface of the water, adding a trace of beauty to the snow-white surface. Boom! A huge wave rose up from the sea, and a huge dragon with a dragon crown on its head flew out. Under the sunlight, the dragon's body was covered in scales that were several feet long, and they shone with a gorgeous color. When this huge dragon rushed out of the sea, its majestic aura instantly roared and surged in all directions. Not to mention the fish and shrimp in the sea, even the passionate water that occasionally hit the reef quietly retreated, not daring to act coquettishly. After the huge dragon, a tall and thin human figure also flew out of the sea. Although this human figure was not very tall, his figure was tall and straight. There was a faint smile between his brows. Those slanted eyebrows and slender phoenix eyes. Wasn't this Xiao Hua, Taoist Master Xiao? Xiao Hua flew out of the sea. His divine sense swept towards the reef. After a moment, he smiled and said, "So you've already reached the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. Thank you for sending me off for thousands of miles. This Xiao can't thank you enough." The huge dragon turned its head. Although the ferocious dragon head was full of majesty, the fear in its eyes was mixed with shame and anger. It looked rather complicated. This huge dragon was the West Sea's master, Ao Hong. Ao Hong opened his mouth and replied. His voice was several times louder than Xiao Hua's. I don't dare. It's this king's honor to be able to send Dragon Master Xiao to the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. And, since we've already reached the Thousand Demons' sacred realm, we humans have an old saying, even if you send someone 1,000 miles away, they will still have to part. Let's part here. If fate wills it in the future, this Xiao will go to the West Sea Dragon Palace to visit Daoist. Xiao Hua smiled and nodded. He cupped his hands as if he was bidding farewell to an old friend. The enthusiasm on his face was even more beautiful than the sunset in the sky. Ao Hong forced a smile and said, Dragon Master Xiao is the master of my dragon race. This king will always wait for Dragon Master's arrival in the Dragon Palace. When the time comes, we'll drink and chat. All right. After Xiao Hua cupped his hands, he flew up and said, since that's the case, we'll part ways here. Cough cough. When Ao Hong saw that Xiao Hua was really about to leave, he hastily coughed and sent a voice transmission. Dragon Master Xiao, earlier. Didn't you say that you were going to tell this prince that fire dragon's soul? Ouch. Xiao Hua patted his forehead, his face filled with apology, and said, look at me, in the Dragon Palace treasury, my eyes were dazzled, and I actually forgot such an important matter. Actually, I am not the only one who knows about the fire dragon's soul. There is also a member of the Sea clan in your West Sea Dragon Palace who knows about it. Go ahead and ask him. Who? Ao Hong was taken aback. He forgot to send a voice transmission as he exclaimed, there are other members of the Sea race in my West Sea Dragon Palace that know of this matter? That's right. Xiao Hua nods, you just have to ask Xiancheng in your Dragon Palace about this. Xiancheng? West Sea Patrol Chief? Ao Hong was truly confused. How did he know about the fire dragon's soul? Could it be that Dragon Master Xiao doesn't know where the fire dragon's soul is? I only promised to tell you about the fire dragon's soul, but I didn't say where the fire dragon's soul is. Xiao Hua smiles, if I tell you where the fire dragon's soul is, your West Sea Dragon Palace treasury will belong to me. After saying that, Xiao Hua's body flashed with lightning as he turned into a bolt of lightning and charged towards the Thousand Demons' sacred realm, disappearing in an instant. Damn it. At this moment, Ao Hong finally realized that he seemed to have been tricked by Xiao Hua. However, if he thought about it carefully, Xiao Hua only promised to tell him about the fire dragon's soul. Since he had already named Xiancheng, as long as he asked Xiancheng, wouldn't he know the whereabouts of the fire dragon's soul? Xiao Hua didn't go back on his word. Damn Xiancheng. Ao Hong didn't dare to vent his anger on Xiao Hua, but he dared to vent his anger on Xiancheng. After cursing angrily, his dragon body flipped a few times in the air and fell into the sea with a whoosh, disappearing in an instant. Dusk was over, the curtain of night rose, the stars were bright, and the crescent moon was hidden. In the darkness, Xiao Hua activated the wind escape technique and flew slowly. Beside him was Feng Wu, who had transformed into a human form. Feng Wu turned to look at the North Sea that was no longer in sight and covered her mouth with a smile. Fellow Daoist is really sinister, sending Ao Hong away with one sentence. This time, that damn Xiancheng will lose a layer of skin even if he doesn't die. How can it be just a layer of skin? Xiao Hua indifferently replied, I dare to bet with you that this time, Xiancheng is dead for sure. Why? Feng Wu didn't know if she really didn't know or if she was just chatty, so she asked back. Xiao Hua replied, I believe fellow Daoist already knows the use of the fire dragon's soul. That fire dragon's soul is the inheritance of the Dragon King of the West Sea Dragon Palace. Without the fire dragon's soul, Ao Hong can't perfectly merge with the Dragon Emperor and can't perfectly suppress the West Sea. The biggest weakness of the Four Seas Grand Formation is him. Moreover, from Ao Hong's words and actions, it seems like he didn't leak the news of the fire dragon's soul to Ao Qian and the other Dragon Kings. In other words, he might suspect that the fire dragon's soul was taken away by the other dragon kings. Or maybe he didn't dare to let the other dragon kings know that the fire dragon's soul was lost. This kind of important news. Xianqing actually didn't report it to him and secretly went to look for it himself. He even colluded with the human and demon race cultivators. Especially, because of this, Xianqing even released the Grand Mist Ancestor, causing the fire dragon's soul to be lost again. Do you think Ao Qian will spare Xianqing? The problem is, Xianqing didn't know that that was the West Sea's eye, nor did he know that the fire dragon's soul was at that place. Feng Wu laughed. Wouldn't Xianqing die unjustly? It doesn't matter whether he knows the truth or not. The key is that he didn't report this matter to the West Sea Dragon Palace. Xiaohua waved his hand and replied, just this alone is enough to take his life. As for being unjustly accused, does fellow Daoist feel that he was wronged? If it wasn't for his trap in the stacked Jade Legacy realm that day, how could I have been besieged by the 4 sea dragon generals? I originally wanted to kill him with my own hands, but how can I make a move against him now? Borrowing Ao Hong's saber to kill him, wouldn't that be the best of both worlds? What best of both worlds? Feng Wu curled his lips again. You took away half of the treasures from the West Sea Dragon Palace's treasury and even used his saber. You took advantage of him. This is all consensual. Xiaohua did not refute, and only said with a smile, I took the treasure and returned the Dragon Emperor to Ao Hong. Without the Dragon Emperor, I don't think he would have been able to keep the other half of the treasury. Sigh, the 4 sea dragon kings deserve it. Feng Wu sighed, they could have schemed against anyone, but they had to scheme against fellow Daoist. In this world, I have never seen anyone who could scheme against fellow Daoist. Xiaohua said proudly, I have a good character. I was originally thinking about how to plunder the South Sea Dragon Palace's treasury, but Ao Hong and the others sent the Dragon Emperor over. I can't not give Ao Hong face awe. That's right, fellow Daoist has already done well, and even returned the West Sea Dragon Emperor to Ao Hong. I thought that the thing in fellow Daoist's hands, how can I take it out again? Feng Wu looked at Xiaohua with a smile and said. Feng Wu also sighed like Xiaohua, there's so much to pay attention to when giving a dragon master. At that time, I really thought it was to rope in fellow Daoist Ao. Chapter 43-26. Looking at Feng Wu's sighing appearance, Xiaohua understood that Feng Wu had obtained the position of great sage, and his spiritual wisdom had already begun to awaken. Now, he had also reached the crucial point of forming a human nature. Xiaohua had to give him some enlightenment at all times, so he patiently explained, actually, what we think is not unreasonable. It was also one of their thoughts. However, Ao Jia is the great elder of Dragon Palace. He stands at a high position and sees far, so he knows more information than us. When he was trying to rope us in, he would naturally consider other factors, such as the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas' disobedience, the betrayal of the Gui clan, the coveting of the second elder, and so on. As for us, we appeared at the right place at the right time, which allowed Ao Jia to make the right choice. By making I the dragon teacher, firstly, it would allow us to rope in Reverend Yun and express Dragon Island's attitude. Secondly, it would give Ao Zhan a reason to be at ease, allowing him to join hands with I when he could not get help from Dragon Island. I had thought of these 2 reasons before, but now, looking at the situation of the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas, I have a third reason. I can restrain the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas with the title of Dragon Teacher. Oh, wrong, Reverend Yun can restrain the Dragon Emperors of the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas. I reckon the 4 Dragon Emperors are not suppressed by the elders of the Dragon Palace, which is the most fundamental reason why the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas refused to submit to Dragon Island. Of course, I reckon there is a 4th or even a 5th reason, but I can't recall it for now. However, I don't like to be someone else's chess piece. Since I don't want to be a chess piece, I have to jump out from the chessboard. What I have gained in the heavenly prison for tens of thousands of years, what my fellow Taoists have gained from the bloody storm in the ruins, what Wen Chu has gained from the sages of literature, what Feng Wu has gained from the stars, what heavenly Tao has gained from the primordial purple qi, and what we have gained from opening the heavens in the primitive continent and saving the world. All these are enough for me to stand at the top of the 3 continents. Of course, it is impossible to digest all these without tens of thousands of years of cultivation or some extreme opportunities. However, what I have gained so far is enough for I to jump out from the chessboard. I have indeed come out, but the chessboard of the Dragon Clan is still there, and the game must continue. Therefore, other than the arrangement of the Dragon Island and the Dragon Palace, I have also made a third arrangement. Ao Zhan was indebted to I, and Ao Zhan was also a man of his word. Between Dragon Island and I, he knew who he would choose. Ao Hong was nearing his end. After the 4 Seas Grand Array, there might be some turmoil in the 4 Seas. The little white dragon had a chance to enter the West Sea Dragon Palace. Although the Dongtian River had been pardoned by the Dragon Island, they might not listen to Ao Zhan's orders. Now, they were in an awkward situation. Jiang Hong had led the Shenhua continent's dragon race back. She was the little princess of the Dongtian River, and it was natural for her to control the Dongtian River. With this 3-step flag, does the Dragon Island Elder still want to play chess with I? The Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas has been arrogant for too long. We still have Reverend Yun. Feng Wu was happy to hear that as well, and said hastily, with Reverend Yun here, who can compete with him? With the axe of the South Sea Dragon Palace. Which stupid dragon dared to go against Reverend Yun? Reverend Yun doesn't even have to show up in the future. He can just be a title. Xiao Hua said with a smile, besides, the current Reverend Yun does not belong to the 3 continents anymore. What do you mean, fellow Taoist? Feng Wu did not understand. Fellow Taoist, how did you feel when you became a great saint and looked down at all the stars? Xiao Hua asked. All the mountains were small. All the saints were under my feet. Feng Wu answered proudly. That's right. If that's the case, will you still lower yourself to the same level as old Demon Ji Feng? Feng Wu shouted without hesitation, of course. If he dares to provoke me, I'll kill him. All right. Let's just pretend I didn't say anything. Xiao Hua held his forehead with one hand, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. You are a great saint now. Why don't you have the awareness of being a great saint? Woo woo. While the two of them were talking, several streaks of star power appeared in the sky above a few dark mountain ranges not far away and fell into the mountain ranges. Although the stellar energy was invisible to the naked eye, it was difficult to detect with divine sense. However, Feng Wu had already become a great saint and was very sensitive to the energy of the stars and moon. She had already seen them and released her Yuan will to check. It's really the 1,000 demons' sacred realm. After a while, Feng Wu withdrew her Yuan will and said with a smile, there are actually a few demons whose strength is close to that of a great demon who are cultivating the demon race's secret arts. Xiao Hua clapped his hands and said with a smile, if that's the case, let's hurry. Hurry? Feng Wu laughed and looked at Xiao Hua thoughtfully. Where are you going, fellow Taoist? Cough cough. Xiao Hua coughed twice, his gaze looking at the endless starry sky as he replied, that greater demon died very decisively. Not only did I not know who instigated him to come over, I also don't know where his Immortal's cave is. However, this fellow's patriarch should be very famous. Let's go to the 1,000 demons' sacred realm and look for him. There will definitely be an answer. That day, didn't you ask Samantabhadra Bodhisattva who this so-called patriarch is? Feng Wu asked curiously. Xiao Hua rolled his eyes and replied, at that time, I was concerned about Lu Er's matter. Then, Namo Maitreya Buddha achieved enlightenment. I didn't think of this at all. However, since this patriarch is someone who gave Mahavairakana Buddha a headache, He must be very famous. Won't we know if we ask him? Then let's go. After Feng Wu finished speaking, she raised her head and let out a phoenix cry. That phoenix cry not only shook the surroundings, but also attracted countless starlight to fall. Feng Wu's eyes were filled with desire and pride. She flapped her wings and turned into a stream of light, rushing into the depths of the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. Under the starlight, the Thousand Demons' sacred realm was like a huge monster crawling there. An indescribable wild aura spread out from the depths of the continent. Night passed and dawn arrived. Just as the sun and moon were alternating, Xiaohua and Feng Wu flew to a barren swamp. However, this swamp was somewhat different from the swamps Xiaohua had seen before. There were many small beasts in the swamp. They were either gliding along the surface of the water or darting around wantonly in the red and black mud. Occasionally, some small flying creatures like dragonflies would fly by. The clever little beasts had already jumped up high and stretched out their tongues to swallow them. The mosquitoes and other creatures that were commonly seen in swamps could not be seen at all here. Even the fishy smell was almost indiscernible. What was left was only some rich starlight aura. The morning sun had just risen, and everywhere it shone, the swamp was already covered in sparkling gold. The many little beasts were a little lazy under the sunlight. In the gentle breeze, the starlight aura gradually faded and was replaced by the extremely hot aura of the sun. The swamp was surrounded by spiritual trees that were several feet long. At this moment, the few dewdrops on the branches and leaves of the spiritual trees had already turned into nothingness. Along with the dewdrops, the little beasts had also disappeared. Above the mud of the swamp, whirlpools could be vaguely seen. Clearly, the little beasts had already hidden inside. Roar, roar. After a short while, hundreds of demonic beasts emerged from the mud in other places. These demonic beasts were dozens of feet in size. Other than the 3 sharp horns on their heads, there were also some small thorns on their bodies. However, these small thorns were covered by a thick layer of mud, and only a few extremely short thorns could be seen. Aoo aoo. These demonic beasts had just poked their bodies out, and before they could even roar twice, they immediately let out low howls. Their huge bodies stopped in the swamp, and they didn't dare to move at all. On the heads of the monsters, the eyes behind the mud all flashed with terrifying gazes. Swoosh. Under the gazes of these demonic beasts, Feng Wu and Xiaohua's figures seemed ordinary yet extremely fast as they flashed past in the sky. Only after the two of them had flown far away did these demonic beasts become lively once again, as expected of the Thousand Monsters' sacred realm. Xiaohua quietly withdrew his divine sense from the swamp and said in a low voice, "No matter if it's a high-level monster or a low-level monster, they all have a natural sense for experts. We have yet to release our divine sense or origin thought. As long as we don't conceal our aura, they will be able to detect us early, yes." Feng Wu did not release her origin thought. Instead, she looked down and sighed. The 3 continents are the hidden immortal continent, the Western Paradise, and the Thousand Monsters' sacred realm. Although there are 4 seas in between, they are still the same realm. However, for some reason, these 3 continents are completely different. The hidden immortal continent is filled with boundless noble qi, and the human clan's luck is endless. The Western Paradise is filled with Buddhist light, and the sound of wooden fish and the chanting of scriptures are endless. Even the beasts seem to carry an extremely heavy benevolence. Looking at the Western Paradise again today, there are endless ravines, endless forests, and countless monsters and monsters. What's special is that the Thousand Monsters' sacred realm is somewhat similar to the prehistoric continent. Many of the mountains and spiritual trees are several times taller than other places. If it weren't for the abundant vitality and the strong power of the stars and moon, I would almost think that this is the prehistoric continent. Xiaohua's figure did not change. Following Feng Wu's flapping wings, he also looked at the abnormally tall mountain range in the distant horizon and nodded. "Fellow Taoist is right. I also suspect that the Thousand Monsters' sacred realm might be a fragment of an ancient prehistoric continent. Moreover, there are mysteries in this fragment that we don't know about. This is why the power of the stars and moon is more favored, causing the monster clan to prosper and also creating countless great monsters, monster kings, and great saints. Yes. Feng Wu said with a smile, although this is the first time I have come to the Thousand Monsters Sacred Realm, under the power of the stars and moon, feeling the aura of countless monster clans on the continent, I actually feel like I'm at home. Moreover, I also feel a kind of summoning in that place. It's the aura of the main hall that appeared in the void when I attained the Great Saint Realm that day. As she spoke, Feng Wu raised her eyes to look at the depths of the Thousand Monsters Sacred Realm. Her eyes revealed an indescribable expression. Chapter 43-27. That's naturally where the Great Sage Hall is located. Xiao Hua's eyes also revealed a strange expression as he replied, if nothing unexpected happens, every demon that attains the Great Sage Realm will be able to sense the Great Sage Hall's aura within the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm. However, with our current situation, it doesn't seem appropriate for us to enter the Great Sage Hall so soon. Isn't it just a Great Sage Hall? I don't even have the patience to go. Feng Wu said proudly, besides, who knows what kind of trash the great sages in the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm are? They've already divided the forces of the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm. If I suddenly joined, wouldn't the balance be broken? They don't seem troublesome, but I do. Let's find a demon and ask them first. Xiao Hua also didn't like troublesome matters, so he nodded and shifted his gaze away from the Great Sage Hall. Up ahead. Feng Wu's origin sense swept out and easily discovered the location of the changes in the power of the stars and moon. There's a great demon there. Feng Wu's figure landed on a mountain range in the distance, and Xiao Hua naturally followed. Boom! Just as they flew close to the mountain range, an untamed aura surged from the depths of the mountain range and directly pressed towards Feng Wu. A cold voice sounded in Feng Wu and Xiao Hua's ears. Where did this demon come from? Boom! Before the demon could finish speaking, Feng Wu sneered. She flapped her wings, and the aura around her surged out like a torrent, instantly dispersing the great demon's aura. The demon's untamed arrogance immediately disappeared, and his cold voice was replaced with apprehension. He cried out in a low voice, "Senior, please spare my life." This lowly one didn't know it was Senior who had graced us with your presence. Feng Wu snorted coldly and rushed into the mountain range. However, in just half a cup of tea's time, Feng Wu and Xiao Hua flew out of the mountain range with deep confusion on their faces. After identifying the direction slightly, they continued to fly towards the north. After flying for half a day, Feng Wu once again rushed into a pool and asked another great demon. After a few times, the sky was already close to dusk. The starry sky of the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm seemed to have arrived earlier than the hidden immortal continent and the pure land of ultimate bliss. Under the twilight starry sky, Xiao Hua and Feng Wu slowed down. Feng Wu was unable to restrain the bewilderment in his heart, and he spoke first. Fellow Taoist, looks like the matter isn't as simple as we thought. Xiao Hua also replied somewhat self-deprecatingly, yes, I have always been somewhat self-righteous. This time, I thought that I already knew that the great demon's backing was the great sage that even the Mahavairakana revered one was afraid of, and that I only needed to find a great demon and ask for the details. But now, I already know who the 6 great sages of the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm are, and I have already asked about their residences. However, these great demons just don't know where these 6 places are. Not to mention who the great sage was that even the Mahavairakana revered Buddha feared. These narrow-minded great demons actually thought that every great sage could easily kill the Mahavairakana revered Buddha. It's really too laughable. Feng Wu looked at the gradually darkening sky and said, that's right. The 6 great sages of the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm are ranked according to their rankings: the golden-winged great roc, the profound armored Pentaceratops, the flying feather void beast, the 5-colored sea god shell, the scarlet flame vermilion bird, and the nether demonic dragon spider. If we only look at the great demon's body, it's somewhat similar to the five-colored sea god shell. However, the five-colored sea god shell is ranked fourth among the 6 great sages. How could its divine ability make the Mahavairakana revered Buddha fear it? Perhaps this five-colored sea god shell great sage has a special divine ability? Can it restrain the Buddhist sex methods? Xiao Hua frowned and guessed. Feng Wu shrugged and replied, perhaps. Of course, what the 6 great sages' true bodies are is just a legend. Perhaps the names of their true bodies are different from their true bodies? Xiao Hua said again, just like these great demons know that the golden-winged great Peng lives in Sangyue heaven, but where Sangyue heaven is, whether it's in the sky or on the ground, they don't know at all. Yes, the mystic armored Pentaceratops lives in the endless sea, the feathered void beast lives in the Xian space forest, the five-colored sea god shell lives in the star-obscuring lake, the scarlet flame vermilion bird and the nether demonic dragon spider live in the sun vault mountain and the dark abyss respectively. However, these places are legends in the first place. They're a type of symbol. No one knows where these places are located in the thousand demons' sacred realm. Feng Wu chimed in rather impatiently. Xiao Hua was somewhat pensive. He looked in a direction and said, of course they don't know where the Great Sage Hall is. Could it be that we have to make a trip to the Great Sage Hall? If you want to go, then go. Feng Wu urged, so what if there are 6 great sages? Can they defeat us fellow Taoists? Xiao Hua thought for a moment and shook his head. Now that the 6 great sages are in the open and fellow Taoists are in the dark, the situation is to our advantage. Moreover, if we rashly appear in the Great Sage Hall, things will become even more troublesome. Forget it, forget it. Feng Wu shook his head and said, I won't think too much about it. I'll listen to fellow Taoists' instructions and do whatever fellow Taoist says. Hearing this, Xiao Hua smiled and said, let's follow our previous plan and take it step by step. If there's no news today, perhaps there will be news tomorrow or the day after. Besides, if Little White Dragon is in trouble, he would have been in trouble long ago. He wouldn't care about these few days. All right, we'll listen to fellow Taoist. Feng Wu nodded and looked at the night sky again. He asked, what about now? Shall we continue forward and find other great demons or even demon kings to ask? There's no need to be so anxious. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said with a smile, we still have other things to do. As he spoke, Xiao Hua stopped and invited Wen Chu and Taoist Witch out of the space. He said, fellow Taoists, I have always had 2 questions that I haven't figured out the answer to. Since we have nothing to do tonight, how about we have a casual chat? Okay. Wen Chu and Taoist Witch landed in the sky and understood the current situation in a moment. Wen Chu clapped his hands and said with a smile, the ancients often say that drinking wine and chatting merrily with the bright moon in the sky is the joy of life. Today, the moon is not round, but the stars are shining brightly. It's a great fortune for us to discuss the Tao with the stars. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, it's not about discussing the Tao. It's just that I have some doubts that are related to fellow Taoists. That's why I said it. Fellow Taoist, please tell us. Taoist Witch looked at Xiao Hua in confusion. Fellow Taoist Wen Chu cultivates a Confucian cultivation method. That day on the primitive continent, fellow Taoist Feng Wu was recognized by the Big Dipper in the 7 Stars formation in the South Sea Dragon Palace. Fellow Taoist Feng Wu also obtained the recognition of the Big Dipper. The stars revolved around the moon. It was also extremely thrilling for the 10,000 demons to turn into stars. Xiao Hua said tirelessly, whether it's the Confucian saints or the demon race's stars, they were all at a realm that we couldn't imagine before. Now that we've seen them and they've cultivated to such a realm, I can't help but have a question. Where did the saints and 10,000 demons come from? There's no need to talk about the saints. They don't exist in the hidden immortal continent anymore. They probably went to the heavenly court. However, among the saints, other than the ones we're familiar with, there are many that we've never seen before. These unfamiliar saints, are they from the 3 continents? Or are they from other realms? As for 10,000 demons, according to I's knowledge, there are 6 great saints after the 1,000 demons' sacred realm. When the stars revolve around the moon, are those great saints from the 1,000 demons' sacred realm? Are there any demon saints from other realms? Hiss. Wen Chu and Feng Wu looked at each other with surprise in their eyes. They've never thought about this. Xiao Hua's words made them think of many things. Wen Chu spoke first. In my opinion, the saints aren't all saints from the hidden immortal continent. Why? Xiao Hua looked at Wen Chu thoughtfully and asked. It's very simple. The Great Desolation continent is far away in the torrent of time. How could ordinary saints have the strength to accurately find where we are? Wen Chu replied, since the saints can accurately appear in front of me, it means that those saints have reached a realm that we can't pry into at the moment. How could a saint of this realm be born in the hidden immortal continent? Even fellow Taoist Wen Chu thinks so. I don't need to say anything more. Feng Wu said with a smile, the 1,000 demons' sacred realm can produce 6 great saints, but they might not be qualified to appear in the stars revolve around the moon. Even if the 1,000 demons' sacred realm produced great saints in the past, how many of them can be ranked in the heavenly stars? Didn't fellow Taoist also say that? Outside the 1,000 demons' sacred realm, there's the 10,000 demons' realm. That place is probably much bigger than the 3 continents, right? The chances of great saints appearing there are also more. Yes. In that case, other than the 3 continents and the Dawn Rain continent, there are many realms and many starry skies. The saints point when Chu and stars revolve around the moon, will also appear in other realms. Xiao Hua nodded slightly. When Chu looked at the starry skies and sighed, when I don't look up, I always feel that I'm the master of the world. I always feel that I can look down on the mortal world and be my own master. Only when I see the starry skies will I understand my true position. Only then will I know that I'm just a speck of dust, an ant under the starry skies. Huh, fellow Taoist Wen Chu, don't be sad. Xiao Hua said with a smile, even if we're ants, we're still the biggest ones. That's reasonable. Taoist Witch clapped his hands and said, I wonder what fellow Taoist's second question is. I'll have to ask fellow Taoist to explain the second question. Xiao Hua said with a smile, of course, I had this question when I saw countless souls at the bottom of the heaven and earth pagoda in the great sky array of the Great Desolation continent. What's the use of souls that made the heavenly demon of the melting paradise try his best to collect the souls of the desolation beasts? When we were in the ruins, didn't the demon emperor also collect the souls of humans? Taoist Witch didn't think at all and answered, the bodies of humans are comparable to a world, and the souls of humans are even more mysterious. It's not an exaggeration to say that they contain the heavenly Tao. Even though I have studied soul cultivation techniques and comprehended some of the inheritances of the 13 gods, it's really difficult for me to answer fellow Taoist's question. I don't know how to answer it. P.S. This is a transitional chapter. Everyone, take your time and don't rush. Chapter 43-28. Actually, fellow Taoist, you don't have to think too deeply about it. Feng Wu suggested, the heavenly devil activated the heavenly dome formation to destroy the primitive continent, but what good would it do him if the primitive continent was destroyed? Of course, the benefit would be to obtain more souls of the primitive beasts. Why would the heavenly devil obtain the souls of the primitive beasts? Isn't it to leave the primitive continent? In other words, 1 or 2 souls are useless, but hundreds of millions of souls have secrets that we don't know. They can save the heavenly devil from the primitive continent. That's right, that's right. Xiao Hua smiled, that day on the primitive continent, weren't you entangled by the dark sky thunder vine? Didn't a demon race want to seize the Kunlun mirror? Presumably, that demon race was transformed by the heavenly devil. He wanted to use the Kunlun mirror to escape from here. In other words, his soul can have the same ability as the Kunlun mirror. Not only that. Taoist Witch replied, I can vaguely feel that there is a great power in the soul. This power might be even stronger than the magic power of the Taoist sect. If we can control this power of the soul, we won't have to be afraid of facing immortal Emperor Gaochen and Vairocana, revered Buddha. The power of the soul, that's the power of reincarnation. How can an ordinary cultivator comprehend it? Xiaohua couldn't help but sigh when he thought of Netherworld and Xue Xue. Fellow Taoist, you have a good character. No one in the entire 3 realms can compare to you. If you can't comprehend it, it's even more impossible for others. Wen Chu said with a smile. Now, it's naturally impossible. However, that doesn't mean it won't be possible in the future. Xiaohua replied proudly, I think that the soul is the core of soul cultivation. Now, the million soul cultivators in Meng Mountains are divided into 13 branches, and each branch cultivates a different soul cultivation. Aren't they also neglecting the essentials? If fellow Taoist Witch wants to cultivate Confucian cultivation to the extreme, you still need to carefully comprehend the power of the soul and find the essence of it. That's right. Taoist Witch also sighed and replied, fellow Taoist is right. I have also been thinking hard about this recently. Now, even though we've obtained the inheritance of the soul cultivator, all the cultivation within it seems to utilize the energy of the soul, the energy of the bloodline, the energy of negative karma, and so on. Even though it seems very mysterious, its might can't compare to the Tao sect's techniques. In fact, it wasn't even as good as the green seal script that I had cultivated earlier. Just like what fellow Taoists said about the Confucian cultivators, we soul cultivators seem to have lost our way in the long river of time. The green seal text is definitely the right direction. Xiaohua nodded, because the spirit techniques of the 13 branches can be traced back to the source using the green seal text. However, green seal runes were far too difficult to cultivate. That was why the adepts had no choice but to seek shortcuts. The more shortcuts one took, the more one would forget the real path. But what was the essence of the green seal text? Was it a soul? The power of the soul. Speaking up to here, Xiaohua suddenly laughed involuntarily. He waved his hand and said, I think too much. With our realms and the 3 continents we are currently in, it is very unlikely that we will be able to obtain the correct answer. Fellow Taoist should take one step at a time, slowly cultivate and slowly search. Perhaps after a long time, when we suddenly look back, we will find the answer. At that time, when we think about tonight's discussion, we will definitely have some thoughts. That's right. If we didn't go to the heavens prison and experience the ruins and the great desolate continent, how would we know so many secrets? Since we know that there is such a wonderful place in the outer world, we naturally have to work harder and strive to have the ability to go there as soon as possible. Actually, this little one is somewhat regretful. Wen Chu said thoughtfully, why didn't we stay in the higher world? Since that is where we will go in the future, why did we return to the 3 continents? Why did we have to cultivate diligently before going to the higher world? Xiaohua smiled and said, not to mention that the Great Desolate Continent is an incomplete Great Desolate Continent with time turbulence outside. That is a place that even the Hua Le Heavenly Demon doesn't want to stay in. How good could our fate be if we stayed there? Although I don't know why the Dragon God and the previous Maitreya Buddha reincarnated, I feel that it has something to do with them wanting to leave the Great Desolate Continent. Moreover, the ruins. Speaking up to here, Xiaohua's smile disappeared. Instead, he looked up at the bright stars in the night sky and said bitterly, under the Great Desolate Star Storm, I don't know if the ruins can still exist. Will Yu Mingxin and Wu Tian be able to escape with their lives? We understand fellow immortal's heart. After a while, Wen Chu continued, that place may be suitable for fellow immortal, but it is not suitable for this little one and the other fellow immortal. There is another layer of meaning. Xiaohua nodded. Just now, I also said that in order to pursue a shortcut, the cultivation system of Confucian cultivators and soul cultivators seems to have deviated from the essence. Although it is an excellent choice for us to stay in the higher world, isn't this also a shortcut? If we don't go through the tempering of the lower world, if we don't go through the normal cultivation path, how can we have the realm and strength of the higher world? Strength can increase, but to enter the higher world, strength is not the only thing that is needed, right? There are many necessary things that we don't know. Without these necessary things, we are trees without roots in the higher world. Therefore, I feel that it is better to return to the three continents step by step. Of course, there is also the knot in fellow immortal's heart. Taoist Witch smiled. Just as he said that, Xiaohua raised his eyebrows again and looked faintly at a place. Since Xiaohua had made a move, the other clones naturally noticed something as well. Feng Wu even asked curiously, why is he here? Xiaohua's hand pinched his chin as he thoughtfully looked into the distance. Some extraordinary splendor flashed within his eyes. However, after merely a moment, he was stunned once again. His eyes turned, and once again looked towards another direction. The thoughtful expression on his face became even denser. After a moment, Xiaohua withdrew his divine sense and looked at Taoist Witch and Wen Chu. He smiled and said, "Fellow immortal, what do you think?" Wen Chu shook his head slightly. "If I'm not wrong, these people coming from afar to the Thousand Demons' sacred realm should be related to that Xiaohua. But the problem is, since even the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas don't want to easily leak the information to us, how do these Tao sect cultivators know?" Taoist Witch blinked his green eyes and said with a smile, "If I say that fellow immortal is too narcissistic, would fellow immortal be angry?" Although some of these Tao sect cultivators are familiar with fellow immortal, they might have come here to hide from the Immortal Palace's inspector. It might not be related to fellow immortal. You guys are really troublesome. Feng Wu said disdainfully, "Fellow immortal, you just have to show up in front of them and ask them. They have already sworn loyalty for 500 or 1,000 years. It has only been 200 years. Are they still not listening to fellow immortal? Fellow immortal, you are thinking too simply." Taoist Witch glanced at Xiaohua and said, "The human heart is the most unpredictable thing in this world. Do you know what a honey mouth is and a sword in the belly is? Do you know what a knife hidden in a smile is?" Back then, these cultivators had no choice but to pledge their allegiance to you. After witnessing your strength, they decided to pledge their allegiance to you wholeheartedly. As for what they are thinking in their hearts, it is impossible for us to know. Soul search. Feng Wu replied decisively, "Fellow immortal, you just need to point your finger and you will know everything, right? Besides, don't you still have the dream mirage butterfly? Once the illusion is released, their state of mind will be immediately revealed." Xiaohua looked at Feng Wu, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. He explained, "If it is not necessary, it is best not to use the soul search technique. Although the illusion is useful, don't you think that using the dream mirage butterfly on these Tao sect cultivators whose cultivation is only at the peak of the 4th level and the lower of the 5th level of essence energy is degrading?" "I don't think so." Feng Wu did not have the consciousness of a great sage and replied without hesitation, "I only think that the most direct way to find the truth is the best way. There is no need to complicate things. Actually." Wen Chu looked at Xiaohua and asked again, "Fellow immortal, you are not only worried about this, right? Because of the appearance of that great demon from the Great Snow Mountain and the obscurity of the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas, fellow immortal is still worried that there is some other truth behind this seemingly simple matter." "That's right." Xiaohua nodded, although I did not say it clearly, that Dragon King of the West Sea already understood. He even took out the treasury of the West Sea Dragon Palace, but did not want to solve the doubts in Ai's heart. Don't you think it is strange? Could it be that the mastermind behind this is more powerful than the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas? Feng Wu seemed to understand something and sneered, "Is it that great sage of the Dragon clan called the Profound Armored Pentaceratops? If so, I would like to see what kind of extraordinary methods this great sage of the dragon clan has. On the surface, in the thousand demons' sacred realm, the profound armored Pentaceratops is the most likely to be interested in the five-clawed golden dragon. But on a deeper level, since the dragon kings of the four seas dared to make a move on some elders of Dragon Island might not dare to. Xiao Hua said again, oh, also, the death of Ao Qian, the fourth prince of the South Sea Dragon Palace, was too strange. Although Ao Concrete cared about his face and only said that Ao Qian committed suicide, I feel that things are not that simple. How could Ao Qian suddenly have the guts to kill 3 princes in the South Sea Dragon Palace? Fellow immortal, you mean? Feng Wu frowned. Behind all this is most likely an elder of Dragon Island? That's right. Xiao Hua sighed, that Ao Jia has caused I to be in trouble. A dragon master with an undeserved reputation. TSK, how much trouble has he caused? Fellow Daoist, you've changed the topic and confused fellow Daoist Feng Wu. Daoist Witch said with a smile, we're going to find out who's behind this, but it's still too early for that. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.